was once a Cardinal. Interesting, I don't hear Flaherty, which I'm not sure I understand why. So I'll be surprised if he doesn't add a veteran starter just because he's working so hard to get one.
That was Jim Bowden on with us earlier this week with Alex and T-Bone. I'm BK. You got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Alex, if I had to place a bet today on who the Cardinals will trade for at this year's deadline, the more I read, the more I hear, the more people I talk to, the more I think it's going to be Zach Eflin. That's my guess. It's purely informed speculation, but that's my guess as of today. And I've seen Jim Bowden connect them to him. I've seen the Tampa Bay Rays beat writer say, hey, the teams that are most interested in Zach Eflin include the St. Louis Cardinals. John Morosi, I think, has connected the two sides. Like, we've seen this. Mark Feinsand also was one that connected the Cardinals to Zach Eflin. He's been highly connected to this team. Now, if you're not familiar with Zach Eflin, if you don't know what he's been doing this year for the Tampa Bay Rays, hey, man, I get it. I don't blame you. He's a forgettable pitcher for most casual baseball observers.
Yes.
If you just want me to be totally honest with you. To be fair, so was Jordan Montgomery before he was traded to the Cardinals. He was a forgettable pitcher, so much so that the Yankees said that guy cannot start a playoff game.
So was Jose Quintana, who started game one of the playoffs for the Cardinals.
So it doesn't necessarily mean he's a bad pitcher. He's just not one of the guys that necessarily stands out for you. So as you look at what he's done so far this year, he's been like kind of league averagey. That's kind of been where he's at. Some of his underlying stuff, though, is pretty good. Fielding independent numbers, I know Stelter talks about these all the time on the fast lane. It's, hey, if you played behind a neutral, in front of a neutral defense, how would you expect the ERA to look? It's about a 3.5 or around there each of the past 7 seasons. He's been a really good pitcher in Major League Baseball. He's got a sweeper, gets a lot of chase outside of the zone. Last year, top 10 in Cy Young. Hasn't been quite as good this year. 30 years old, got another year of control remaining at $18 million for next season. Alex, that's all the background on Zach Eflin. If I told you today that is the guy that the Cardinals add next week at the deadline, how are you feeling about it?
Fine. I'm not going to be jumping up and down saying the Cardinals got their guy, but I'm also not going to be upset about it. And that's where I think a lot of people look at the Zach Eflin and say, well, that's not a good acquisition. That's a much better acquisition than more than a handful of guys that have been connected to the Cardinals, or at least we've talked about. And when Cardinals talk about going to get their guy, I mean, I don't know who their guy is when it comes to look at the pieces out there, because the Rangers aren't trading anybody. You're not getting Crochet or Skubal. And now we're talking Eric Fetty, Zach Eflin, Yusei Kikuchi. And then from there, you're going to Tyler Anderson and Austin Gomber. And when the moment Jim Bowden said Austin Gomber, I'm thinking, okay, what can I do to upgrade? So Zach Eflin is an upgrade. I think he's a better version of Miles Mikolas. It might actually be the same version of Miles Mikolas. But at least what you're doing with Zach Eflin is you're bringing in somebody who has had that upside. You saw it last year where he was striking out 9 guys per 9, and he was in a Cy Young conversation for Tampa Bay.
He's similar to 2022 Miles Mikolas, to put this in context. The guy that the Cardinals had going up against aces. Remember, that was the year that he went head-to-head against McClanahan in Tampa Bay, and it was like, hey, he held his own. Cardinals ended up losing that game, if I remember correctly, but it was not because of Miles Mikolas. It was like a 2-1 game, kind of similar to what they've had recently against the Pirates. But he was really good. That is what he's been, Zach Eflin, for like the last 5 Major League seasons of his career.
You're bringing in somebody that forces you to make a decision of who you're starting for Game 2 of a playoff series. And in my opinion, those guys are Eric Fetty and Zach Eflin. And because I don't even know if Kikuchi you're putting in there unless you get him to look a little bit different than what he did in Toronto. Maybe you are. Hear the argument with it. But those are 3 guys. So I'm fine with it because I still would look at it and say, yeah, but you're getting a guy with a 4 ERA, and is he going to have the same issues when he gets over to the Cardinals? But it's much better than 4 or 5 other guys that have been connected to the Cardinals. And in that case, I'll go with the upside of what Zach Eflin could be.
Yeah, I think if they add him, it fits in terms of, you know what, he's fine. And does he really marginally upgrade your team? Not significantly, but he does make you better. You know, he's the kind of guy that raises more your floor than he is that raises your ceiling. And you know what? They kind of need that, especially on a market when you look at it. There's a lot of Zach Eflins out there. Kikuchi kind of falls in with Zach Eflin. He's got more swing and miss, but he's like a 3. You know, Eric Fetty, probably a 3 on a contending team. There's not a lot of 1s. You're not going to go trade the farm, and they shouldn't trade the farm because they're not, let's just be honest, good enough to trade the farm for a Skubal or a Crochet. I'd hear an argument they should be in on Jack. They probably should be on Jack Flaherty, but they don't want to be. So this is kind of the market you're looking in. So would I crush them for adding a Zach Eflin? No, I think it's just a fine addition. I think it could end up being like the Montgomery Quintana trade. Sure. The odds are it's probably not, though, and he ends up just being fine and starts like game 3 for you, and then like we go into next season and kind of forget that they acquired him.
I think he makes you better. Like, there's no doubt about that. He definitely upgrades what you have in your rotation. And if you put yourself in John Mozeliak's shoes, I think the reason why you would make this move is, A, he's got more certainty than most of the other pitchers that we've talked about. Like, if we say, hey, Eovaldi's not an option for them, but Jack Flaherty is not somebody they're interested in. We can disagree with them not being interested in him, but let's go down this path, right? We'll walk down this road together. I think Eric Fetty has looked good this year. There's going to be a question in everybody's mind. Is he going to be in St. Louis what Miles Mikolas has been in St. Louis, where year 1 was awesome, and all of the fixes that he made in the KBO, they've worked for him so far here this year while he's with Chicago. Is that going to sustain? How long does that last? Those are open-ended questions that we don't know the answers to yet. Yusei Kikuchi, all of his underlying stuff looks so great. Why has that never manifested itself into a good ERA? Why is he always like a mid-4s guy? Why are there so many blow-ups with him? Explain that, and then maybe I would be more comfortable with it. That's probably something that Mo was thinking through. Meanwhile, Eflin's just been really good for like 5 years. It's never great, but it's always pretty good. Feels pretty John Mozeliak-y, man. And I'm not telling you that's a good or a bad thing, but it feels very much like the kind of move that this team will make at the deadline when there are so many question marks that are likely to be traded this year. Tyler Anderson, like, you're telling me I get Tyler Anderson or Zach Eflin? Dude, Eflin every day of the week. It's not even close for me. I think Eflin is a better pitcher than people are giving him credit for. I think he can come in, and as I'm looking at the numbers that Monty and Quintana were putting up when they were traded to St. Louis, it's really similar to Eflin. Those guys had a little more swing and miss than what Eflin does. Eflin, you could argue, like, better command than either of those two pitchers had. No, not even an argument. Definitely better command. And similar in terms of the overall results. Like ERA, fielding independent, stuff, all that stuff. Like, pretty similar to what Quintana and Montgomery were at the time. It'd be a really nice move. The other thing that you have to factor in here, it's not just for this year. It's not the Quintana move. It's the Montgomery move. And that he has another year of control remaining, and it is already in place. It's $18 million for 2025. Now, they've been telling people, the Tampa Bay Rays have, that they're willing to maybe cover some of that cost if it means they get a better prospect in return. They'll get off most of the money, but take down some of it for a team that decides to trade for Eflin. Alex, how does that factor in, if at all, to your pursuit of Eflin at this year's deadline, knowing he will likely be a part of your rotation next year along with the remainder of this season?
I mean, that's everything. That's the whole reason why I wanted the Cardinals to acquire a starting pitcher that has term for next year, and it's why Fetty, and it's why you're talking about Zach Eflin and the one that I brought up, Chris Bassett from the Toronto Blue Jays, and even Nathan Eovaldi we've talked about. That sets the rotation up for success next year, because now you're looking at Sonny Gray, Kyle Gibson, Miles Mikolas, and let's say they acquire Zach Eflin for next year. The hope is you can still go find that number 2, because it feels a lot like what you're doing this year in terms of the hope of your rotation, having a guy who has that top-level stuff that you can look at and you say, boom, there's our 1-2 punch. And Zach Eflin at least can give you that opportunity to dream on it from what he did last year with Tampa Bay. But at least I know I've got 4 quality dudes in my rotation that I know are going to be there for me every 5th day and be competitive, which is something we saw kind of tail off with Lance Lynn a little bit here. Steven Matz wasn't available. If you acquire Zach Eflin or anybody with term, your rotation is set for next year, and hope that you just upgrade over one spot to get a high leverage guy.
Yeah, you would go into next season if you acquired Eflin with a better rotation than you had coming into this year.
Absolutely. Because
he replaces Lance Lynn. If you told me right now, who would I rather have, Zach Eflin or Lance Lynn? Well, the reason we're trading for Zach Eflin is because he is better than Lance Lynn. Mm-hmm. So it sets you up to be in a pretty good spot to where you have guys that you trust are going to post every day, which was a big thing for them. Yeah. And it potentially buys you time as well for that next wave of starting pitching to come up in 2025, in which you got Quinn Matthews, Tink Wiggins, Cooper Jerpy. You'd hope that those guys would take that developmental step to be potentially ready by the time you get to July. You go into next season where you've got a 1 in Sonny Gray, 2 3s, I would say, in Gibson and in Eflin, and then a 4 5 in Michaelis, and you've got Steven Madsen Palante for that 5th spot. Like that's a pretty solid rotation compared to like what you had, I thought, coming into this season.
Yeah. It makes you better again next year, and this is about like continuing to build on the foundation of what you have, right? Sonny Gray was the building block that they needed last offseason, and thankfully they were able to acquire him despite a weird path to be able to get there. So they got Sonny. That's your number 1. You're feeling good about that. I feel like in this scenario, you've got a legitimate number 3 in Zach Eflin. I think Kyle Gibson's a perfect number 4. Like on a really good team, that's probably where he fits in best. And then your 5 is like Michaelis / Palante / if you bring back Lynn. I don't think you would in this scenario, honestly. No. And you kind of piece things together there, but you've got real options. It's not like some of what they've done in the past where it's like, squint, tilt your head, hope you've got a number 5 starter. No, you've got guys that can legitimately profile that way, and you've got a little bit more depth than you've had in recent season. You're still missing that number 2. They've been missing a number 2 starter for like 7 years, and they're still missing it in this scenario. And so that's what they would need to do is, hey, you're building this thing out from the front and the back towards the middle is basically what they've done. And now you need to, in the offseason, go out and get your number 2 starter for next year to be different than what we're looking at right now. I think the tough part is for a lot of people on our text line at 314-399-9646, that's the Air Comfort Service text line, a lot of people are saying, yeah, guys, this is great, but they're not actually building a playoff rotation if they go get Zach Eflin. Guys, I genuinely would love to hear who the guy is that you would like to see the Cardinals acquire at this year's deadline that changes that. Because I don't see many people that are available.
That they realistically can acquire. Because Skubal and Crochet, you can say as much as you want that they need to go acquire them. The price is so significant that I don't know if any team's acquiring those
and
two.
Let's put them into 2 separate categories. Because Skubal, I just flat out don't believe is going to be traded. Like, I think all of this, I heard this I think it was Andy McCullough who said this yesterday on a podcast. He said, I think what's happening with Skubal is there's teams that want to get Crochet that are trying to lower the price by making it appear as if Skubal is available.
Yeah.
Because then if there's another front-end rotation starter available, it artificially decreases the price that would be paid for somebody like Crochet. He thinks that's what's happening and that Skubal is not actually out there available on the market. So let's say that's the case. Crochet just came out yesterday, and he and his agent said, unless I get an extension, I'm not pitching into October, and I'm not pitching out of the bullpen no matter what. Cardinals ain't doing that.
No.
I don't think any team's going to do that. So let's set that one aside for a second here, too. Who else? Who else is available that has been reported for this year's deadline that you would like to see the Cardinals acquire that can be a legitimate number 1 or 2 starter on a playoff contending team?
And I know you're not saying Flaherty Cardinals Nation.
Yeah,
because you know where that's going.
I'm not telling you that you shouldn't want that. You should. I want that. I would love nothing more than to see them acquire a front-end starter. I've been saying this since July of last year that they need to go get those guys. But if they're not available, I can't hold the Cardinals' feet to the fire for not doing something that was not obtainable to them. The time to do that was in last offseason, and we did it. We talked all offseason about how they failed to acquire a number 2 starter, and that was ultimately going to be the thing that comes back to bite them. Well, guys, we're here, and it's coming back to bite them. They messed up in the offseason. We all believed that to be the case then, and it still is the case today. But that's a different conversation than criticizing them for what they can now do. What they can now do is go out and acquire a lot of guys that look like Zach Eflin. And if Eflin becomes the most obtainable piece that is a mid-rotation starter that at times last year pitched like a top 10 Cy Young candidate and is pitching in the most difficult division in all of Major League Baseball and was pitching in the NL East prior to that at a hitter-friendly park, I look at it and say this might be the best option for the Cardinals at this year's deadline. It helps them now. It helps them next year. It patches up a hole in your rotation. It can't be the only thing you do. But if this is the move, I think it helps them. I think it makes them better. I think it's probably, like, other than Jack Flaherty, the best option they have available to them this year at the deadline.
Kikuchi's out there, man.
Well,
I know.
We don't know. The truth of the matter is, I don't know if there's a significant move that makes you a World Series contender.
I don't think it exists.
And I think everybody needs to come to terms with that. We are not painting a picture of a World Series contender, but what you're painting is an opportunity to do damage in the postseason. And when
give yourself the best chance possible. That's all you can do.
And what you can't have the best chance to do damage is if your 3 starting pitchers are Miles Michaelis, Kyle Gibson, and Sonny Gray. You need an upgrade over that. You still have a problem on offense. You still need to fix your bullpen, but you are giving yourself a much better chance with Fetty, with Eflin, maybe not Kikuchi, sorry, T-Bone, but you're giving yourself a better chance than rolling out there with Michaelis, Gibson, and Sonny Gray.
You got to help your team. They have done enough to warrant justifying this kind of a cost. It's not going to be a ton, but it's going to be a cost. You probably will have to give up more than people think for Zach Eflin, because pitching is at a premium this time of the year. He's got another year of control. They're probably going to pay down some of that salary for next year, so you're going to be paying $12 million next year, something like that, for Zach Eflin. It's a good deal, man. It's a good deal. You're basically getting Zach Eflin next year for the money that you're paying for Lance Lynn this year. That's a good market value deal for a guy that is better than what Lance Lynn has been for you this year. Lance Lynn probably shouldn't be starting games for a playoff team in the postseason. And in this scenario, I don't think he would be starting games for the Cardinals in the postseason. Zach Eflin should be. He's a guy that you could go into a postseason series for any team and be like, yeah, that guy's a number 3 or 4 starter. Fortunately for the Cardinals, he probably would be your number 2, but that's where they're at. That's what they have available to them. That's all they can do. He's Alex T-Bone on BK. Coming up in about 15 minutes or so, we'll give you some of the latest across Major League Baseball at this year's deadline. There has been a move today, by the way, since we've come on the air. Looks like James Paxton going back to Boston.
Oh, not St. Louis.
It's a very low-level deal. Going back to Boston, a team that he has a lot of familiarity with. They had a need in their rotation. They have got some injuries there. He's going to be like a number 5 starter for them right now. He's walking the world. He's not striking anybody out. This is not a guy that I was particularly interested in for the Cardinals. I think you've got better options already in your rotation than Paxton, but he was one of the players that was DFA'd last week or put through waivers last week, and now he's found a new home. He is going to be heading to Boston. There are some other rumors and reports across Major League Baseball that we will get to in a Major League Baseball trade deadline roundup at 11:30. But coming up next, T-Bone's falling for it again, Alex. I was surprised to hear this morning. Is it peak Lars season? We'll talk about it next here on 101 ESPN.
Peak Lars Nootbaar. Okay, we have a mark it down right now. What's today? August 8th. 360 on base percentage, 500 slug. Mark it down right now.
That was Lars Nootbaar's trainer talking with us in 2022 about what peak Lars looks like alongside Alex and T-Bone. I'm BK.
He was so close, too.
Alex, he had a 360 on-base percentage last year. He did not have a 500 slug, though. He ended up with with a slugging percentage of 420 a year ago. That being said, we typically see Lars Nootbaar do the same thing every single season. Starts out a little bit slow, and then in the second half, he basically becomes peak Lars. In his career, in the second half of the season, he's got a 370 on-base percentage and a 475 slugging percentage. That's good for roughly an 840 OPS, about 20% above league average offensively. T-Bone, you read an article earlier this morning, and you came in and you said, BK, Alex, I'm going to say something you're never going to believe. I don't think I would trade Lars Nootbaar. I think I'm back in on the Lars Nootbaar experience. T-Bone, explain yourself.
So when I was reading Derek Gould's piece, which was a great piece over at STL today, it was talking about Matt Carpenter, and it had a couple of quotes from Ollie Marmol about Lars Nootbaar, and talking about, what can Lars Nootbaar become kind of. And when I read Matt Carpenter say, I think he can put together a season like Alec Burleson, and the reasons were for pitch recognition, discipline, overall swing skill, and knows when he can do damage. And then reading about how, Carpenter had a quote in there that said, if he gets at bats and gets like his rhythm, then he's going to be a guy that can go on a run. And then the more I sat at my chair drinking my coffee and was thinking to myself,
was it coffee or was it whiskey?
Did you read
coffee?
Out of curiosity, did you read that article in the paper itself where you were pulling?
Is
that even a question?
Or were you at your computer? Because I would be pretty surprised. I would be more surprised if you were reading this at a computer than if you had this opinion.
He was grunting as he was flipping the page.
Yeah. No, it was on my computer. It was on my computer. I wish it was a hard copy, then I'd really be like my dad. But I was reading this when I was reading those comments and then hearing Carpenter say, he just needs to get his at-bats and get his rhythm. I thought to myself, okay, well, when has Lars really gone on the peak Lars season? Well, it's when he's had that, when he's been healthy and he's been able to get at bats, he's able to find a rhythm. You mentioned the 2022 second half. Remember, early on in 2022, he was either a bench guy or down in the minor leagues. Figured out, comes up, gets playing time, and then we have the conversation about peak Lars. 2023, first half, what's he deal with? He deals with injuries. Second half, he doesn't. What happens? You see the Lars Nootbaar of old. This season, it's early, small sample size, but early on here in the second half, he's been healthy, and you're starting to see a little bit of that peak Lars, hitting a little bit of power. He's got a good on base, and he's got a great batter's eye, which we've known all along. I think the more that I've read and thought about Lars Nootbaar and the batter's eye, the swing, I think, why can't he do what Alec Burleson is doing this season? And I've said that I think Alec Burleson is legit, that this is not a one-off for Alec Burleson. Because of his eye and the power that he has in his swing, I think if Lars Nootbaar can stay healthy, he's got to stay healthy, I think you can see where Lars Nootbaar can end up becoming a really good player that can have a breakout season like Alec Burleson and have a hot, torrid second half, to where I say, you know what, I think I'm at the point now where I'm just not going to listen to trade offers for him.
I think he's Brandon Nimmo.
Yeah.
I've said this all along. I think that's who he's going to be. And if he becomes that, that's a really good baseball player, guys. It's not somebody that you would expect to get a $20 million per year contract on an 8-year deal, 8 years, $162 million. But that's exactly what happened for Brandon Nimmo. Nimmo gets on base at a really high clip, like a 37% clip for his career, hits for a little bit of power. He's typically a 20 to 25 home run guy, and he's become a 30 home run guy over the past couple of seasons. He's developed into even more power. Nimmo's problem was injuries. And as he started to get healthy over the past 2 years, he's finally played full seasons, 151 and 152 games. And in those 2 seasons, 30 doubles, a couple of seasons ago, 25 home runs, man. If you get that to go along with a 360 on base percentage, you're talking about a borderline all-star. And that's the hope for Lars Nootbaar, is that he can have that. That is in his range of outcomes. And so I'm with you, T-Bone. I've always believed that he's a better player than he gets credit for. And I think for the traditional fan, the traditionalist, the reason why you don't believe in Lars Nootbaar is because of the batting average. Because he's not a guy that's ever going to hit 290, 300. He's not going to be what Burleson is in that regard. He's always going to strike out probably more than what you'd want, but he's got a good batter's eye. And when he makes contact, it's going to be for more slug than maybe you would otherwise recognize. He's already doing the thing where in the second half he heats up a little bit. He's got an OPS close to 1,000. If you look at all of his underlying numbers, dude, it's red all over his Baseball Savant page because he hits the ball unbelievably hard. I'm in. I have always believed that Lars Nootbaar was a really good player. It just comes down to his health. If this guy can stay healthy, I think you've got somebody that can be an everyday starter in one of your corner outfield spots, and you just don't have to worry about it for the next 5 years. But that's always the question is, can he stay healthy?
The problem with that, I mean, the can he stay healthy, it feels like that's what we did with Tyler O'Neill for the longest time, where it was, can he stay healthy? And then
the difference is he produces when he is healthy, whereas Tyler O'Neill had one season where
I get it, but it was the question we were asking, and at the time we were thinking, it's like, well, he can't produce because he can't stay healthy. I mean, I'm with you guys. Like, it's always been the guy that you trade is Nolan Gorman, in my opinion. He's the one that just was the square peg not fitting into the round hole for the Cardinals because there's obviously a need for outfield, and Lars Nootbaar is that guy. Brendan Donovan has turned into that guy, but that's your utility guy that could play second base. It really always feels like it comes back to Nolan Gorman as your best trade chip. And, I mean, even with the injuries and the uncertainty of Lars Nootbaar, you've seen what it looks like, and you see how he impacts the team. And if the biggest pushback on this with Lars Nootbaar is, well, we got to find a way to keep him healthy. You could find ways to work around that to keep the guy healthy. They've been fluky injuries in the past for him, but he's not the guy that I'd look at and I say, we're going to have to move on from this one. I think Nolan Gorman, unfortunately, is that guy.
And I think the other thing with the Nootbaar injuries, and I feel like I said this about O'Neill and it ended up not being the case, at least for Nootbaar, it feels like they're odd injuries. You know, they're not, for the most part, they haven't been like muscular.
He also wants to play baseball, which is important.
Yeah, I haven't heard him complain about turf yet, which is nice. It's a nice change of pace. But with Nootbaar, he had the most recent injury was a muscular one, which was, if I remember correctly, what was it? It was a pec or something along those lines.
Newt?
Yeah, what was it? It was admin.
Was it a hammy?
No, it wasn't
I don't remember what it was.
Hurt something in his swing. But
oblique.
Oblique, thank you.
That's
I
what
can't
it was.
remember the name of it, but yeah. So like that one, maybe if that becomes the normal, okay, then there's like reason for concern because that's what like Giancarlo Stanton has. He always has some sort of muscle that gets hurt. But for the most part, they've been fluke injuries, running into a wall. Well, if we drink more milk, we may not break a bone. Sliding into a base and spraining an ankle. That's a fluke injury. I think landing on a baseball and breaking a bone, again, another fluke injury. The hope is that these fluke injuries, at some point, his bad luck breaks his way and he can put together a full season. And that's why I'm with you. Whether he becomes Brandon Nimmo or like 90% of Brandon Nimmo, sure, I'm in on holding on to that guy.
So a lot of people have brought up, okay, well, what does that mean then? If you're going to keep Lars Nootbaar, if you're keeping Brendan Donovan, if you're keeping Alec Burleson, what does that mean for the future of this outfield? And the name that immediately comes to mind is Jordan Walker. Guys, it's time for Jordan Walker to get going. And over the past couple of games down in the minors, it's gone better for him. He had 2 doubles a couple of nights ago, and last night he had a home run, and that was necessary. It's desperately time for him to start producing. In the month of July, and this includes what he's done over the past couple of days, 2 doubles in one game and then the homer last night. He's batting 191 with a 285 on-base percentage and a slugging percentage of 300. He has 20 strikeouts in his last 60 at-bats. So he's striking out 30% of the time. He's not really doing any damage. He's not hitting for average. It's as bad of a month as he's had so far down in AAA. 590 OPS, and that's against AAA pitching, guys. I still believe very much in Jordan Walker. I think he's going to figure this out. And in the month of June, it looked like maybe he was turning a page. 760 OPS. It's not great, but it's better. He's starting to do some damage with the ball, and like you're starting to see some signs of life from the bat. Defensively, every report that I've seen, man, he's an above-average right fielder now. He's pretty good out there. I don't even care about the swing anymore. Like, that's a separate conversation. Jordan Walker has got to start producing. I'm not giving up on him. I still very much believe in him. He's 22 years old, but whatever the explanation for why things have gone awry, whoever you want to blame, it's not even a blame game anymore. Now it's about getting the kid right. Getting the kid to produce at the AAA level because he can't produce here until he gets better at the AAA level. That is the number one priority within the Cardinals minor league system right now is to get this guy back on track. So what does it mean for him? Nothing to me. It means that he's going to be your starting outfielder at some point. And Brendan Donovan probably drops down to second base or becomes your version of Ben Zobrist. Alec Burleson plays first base / DH. Like, you can figure this stuff out. It's okay. Even if they don't have an everyday position for Donovan, that guy's going to play every day. They'll figure it out. Walker is a part of their plans, in my opinion, still for the future.
He has to be. And if the rest of this season goes the way that this last month has gone for Jordan Walker, by the end of the year, the offseason is going to be really interesting because you're going to have some big decisions to make because of Walker. Do you decide to move one of these lefty bats off of your roster to fix the right-handed issues? Do you go out there and find a pitcher? Like, you'll have pieces. It's going to have to come down to you make the decisions of who is Jordan Walker and what do we do with Jordan Walker, because you need that right-handed bat specifically in the outfield for this team next year.
He's Alex Ferrario. That's Tanner Hendrickson, and I'm Brandon Kiley. In 15 minutes, we're going to get to Ask Us Anything. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. If you guys have any questions, get them in now, sports or otherwise. But next, the Major League Baseball trade deadline is starting to heat up. We actually saw a couple of trades over the last 24 hours already. We'll talk about those and give you the latest news and rumors in our latest edition of the Major League Baseball trade deadline Roundup.
Yeah!
Here on 101 ESPN.
Chad Hendricks here with a Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Cardinals back in action tonight as they start a 3-game weekend set here at home against the Washington Nationals. 7:15 will be first pitch. Mackenzie Gore gets the start for Washington. Sonny Gray will be on the mound for St. Louis. The Sports Center update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
All right, it's time for the latest edition of the Major League Baseball trade deadline Roundup. Yeah! Here on 101 ESPN. We have a trade to announce, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh!
T-Bone, the Phillies made a deal.
Yeah, according to Bob Nightingale, the Philadelphia Phillies have acquired outfielder Austin Hayes from the Baltimore Orioles for right-hander reliever Sir Anthony Dominguez and some outfielder whose name I can't pronounce.
Kristen Pache?
Something along those lines.
This is a really interesting one. In all seriousness, you rarely see two teams that are in contention making a deal like this. This
Arguably
is
the best teams in their league.
So one of them, the Phillies, needed a right-handed bat that can hit against lefties to be able to platoon, and that's exactly what Austin Hayes brings to the table. The Orioles desperately needed help in their bullpen, so Anthony Dominguez certainly provides that. A little surprised that the Phillies were willing to give up Sir Anthony Dominguez in a deal like this. Now, he hasn't been the same pitcher this year that he was in the past. He's got a 4.7 ERA. Last year, he had a 3.7.
But that strikeout stuff is nasty.
The strikeout rate is very much still there. He does not have walk issues. Like, I would anticipate he's going to be better in the second half than he was in the first. We know how this stuff works. A couple of bad outings can totally bloat your ERA as a reliever. Sir Anthony Dominguez is good, man. I would have loved to have a guy like that. The Cardinals just didn't have the right-handed bat to offer. I would have also loved Austin Hayes. This is a fun trade. This is the rare deadline deal that I think both teams win. Both teams end up getting better because of what they needed. Good deal.
Yeah, absolutely. It's rare you see a player-for-player trade just in itself at the deadline, because typically it's prospects for a major league player, and now you got two major league players going two different directions. And then, like T-Bone mentioned, you rarely see two teams that are some of the best in their league go out there and trade off of their roster for another one. But at least from multiple people reporting on this, it sounds like it matches the need on both sides. The Phillies bullpen has plenty of other arms to use in that spot, and you get that left-handed bat that can play the outfield for you. And if you're the Orioles, man, you just locked down your bullpen.
Reminds me a little of the Cardinals-Montgomery deal.
Yeah.
What did the Cardinals need? They needed a starter that could start in the playoffs for them, so they acquired Jordan Montgomery. The Yankees, what did they need? A defensive-minded center fielder. So they took the 1-foot Harrison Bader from the Cardinals.
By the way, Pache, former top prospect, was a top 10 prospect heading into 2021. I think that's the same class as Dylan Carlson, if I'm not mistaken. Just to give you some perspective on how quickly players can lose their value when they don't produce at the major league level. Now, Carlson produced at a higher rate than Pache ever has, but Pache just has not worked out for whatever reason at the major league level. And I guess if you're Baltimore, you're saying, hey, give us a little bit extra depth. Maybe he becomes something with them. Worst case scenario, he's a good outfielder, plays center field for you. So that's the other piece that they got in this deal. All right, as we continue with our Major League Baseball trade deadline Roundup. Yeah! Let's go through some of the rumors that have existed so far. Astros, Orioles, and Padres have all shown interest in Jameson Taillon. Guys, I don't have a whole lot of thoughts about Jameson Taillon. I typically don't think about him very much, honestly.
What?
He's your classic number 3 starter. I looked at his numbers the other day. Taillon could help somebody. The guy's been really good so far this year. We were talking about Eflin earlier today. Taillon's just been a better version of Eflin so far this year. Less certainty, has not been as good in the past. Where do you guys think he ends up? Astros, Padres, or Orioles? Those are the 3 teams that have been most connected to him so far.
That seems like if you're AJ Preller, this seems more like a Padres move, because, you don't have to get real wild and crazy at the trade deadline like you typically do. I would say the Padres makes an awful lot of sense for somebody like Jameson Taillon.
Preller, this is too small for Preller.
Yeah, but you've gone big too much. You gotta stay back.
Preller's the kind of guy that moseys on over to the bar and puts it all on one number when he's playing roulette.
Straight whiskey.
I think this is an Astros move. They need depth of pitching. They got the top end guys. They got Valdez. They got Verlander. They just need depth. I think he ends up going to the Houston Astros.
That's what I was going to go with.
If he wasn't with the Cubs, I'd say that's a Brewers move too.
Next one up is the Randy Arozarena deal, which has now been completed. Love this for the Seattle Mariners. The Mariners decide to trade for Randy A. They're bringing him to Seattle. They are desperate for any kind of offensive production. I saw that Arozarena has like a 715 OPS so far this year. That would currently fit in as the best on the Seattle Mariners roster. It's been a rough go, to say the least, for the Mariners so far this year. In return, they did send a couple of prospects. It seemed like a pretty light return, honestly, for a guy like Randy Arozarena, and it speaks to the lack of value that bats have this time of the year. You want to trade for pitching? You're going to have to overpay for it. You want to trade for any kind of a bat? Probably not going to have to give up a ton because there's fewer teams that are looking for those position players. What'd you make of this deal, Alex?
I loved it for Seattle. I mean, I know Arozarena hasn't been Babe Ruth this year like he's been in the past with Tampa Bay, but I mean, when you're Seattle, you've got the pitching that could carry you through a postseason. It really is all about your offense, and because there weren't a whole lot of guys out there, like I don't think Pete Alonso is going to get traded. This was the best move that Seattle could have pulled off, and they didn't have to deal from any of their Major League Baseball roster. So to get Randy Arozarena and hope he gets back to himself, if anything, he performs in the postseason. I love this move for Seattle.
Yeah, he's got the kind of power that shouldn't really be impacted by Seattle. And what I mean by that is by the ballpark, because that ballpark is huge, and they can't find guys that can play in it. I don't think you're going to see much drop-off. He was on pace to have a career year. His career high in home runs is 23. He's already got 15 this season.
And Tropicana plays as a severe pitcher-friendly park.
So I don't think you're going to see that. So I love the move. They've got to upgrade their offense. If they can upgrade their offense, they're going to be really tough to knock out in October.
Yeah, next bit of news, the Rangers, according to Ken Rosenthal, are officially, quote-unquote, going for it. That means that they're not going to be dealing Nathan Eovaldi, not going to be dealing, certainly, Max Scherzer. Alex, we can write those off the wish list for the Cardinals.
And this is why when we opened the segment talking about Zach Eflin, like when Nathan Eovaldi and Max Scherzer aren't realistic options anymore, that's why you go back to a Zach Eflin and an Eric Fedde, because those are the best options available for you. It makes sense. I mean, I know we were really hoping that the Rangers would sell, but, man, when you've got Chris Young as the GM and when you've got Bruce Bochy there as the manager, I don't think you can ever sit there and say we can't go for it. So when you're within striking distance and you have a roster that was just there last year, it makes an awful lot of sense that they're saying they're going for it.
Yeah, it really sucks because Eovaldi and Scherzer are the kind of guys that when dealt at a deadline can really change a team's ceiling. Eflin, Taillon, a lot of the guys that are going to be available at this deadline, they don't really change your ceiling. They just make you a little bit better. These guys would have really changed the Cardinals' outlook.
I'm glad to see it. I'm glad to see they're going to go for it. It reminds me, 2015 was a deadline that will always be near and dear to my heart because I was a Royals fan and they won the World Series that year. They ended up trading for Ben Zobrist. They traded for Johnny Cueto. It was fun.
Yeah.
But the team that actually, quote-unquote, won that deadline was the Toronto Blue Jays. They traded for David Price that year and
Tulowitzki.
It was an unbelievable deadline, and at the time, they were like third in their division. They were out of the wild card race. And people were like, what the hell are they doing? But it was a run differential play. They had one of the best run differentials in the league.
Oh, don't show that to motivation.
Yeah. And so they were like, we believe in this team. We think we're really good. We believe that we're going to get hot in the second half. And I think that this is a team that can go to the World Series. That's how the Rangers feel right now. If you look across the American League, there aren't a lot of teams that really scare you, honestly. Most of them are not playing their best baseball currently. So if you're the Rangers, you went to the World Series and won it last year. You have mostly the same core group of players. You've got essentially an entire rotation that's coming off of the injured list now. Might as well go for it. See what you can do. Add a little bit to the roster. We'll see where they end up going. I'm glad that is the decision that they've decided to make. A couple other quick things here as we go through our Major League Baseball trade deadline. Roundup! The Giants are reportedly open to trading Blake Snell at this year's deadline. He's been pitching better lately, guys. Would you consider it? He's got a big player option for next year.
No.
I'd do it. I think he's got some great stuff, and he's a 2. Like, I know he's struggling, but, guys, he's won 2 Cy Youngs, or he's won 1 and been the runner-up in 1. He's got unbelievable stuff. I would take the risk on it. I really would.
Last 3 starts since coming back. 5 innings, 0 earned runs. 7 innings, 0 earned runs. 6 innings, 2 earned runs. Has 15 strikeouts in those 3 starts.
And how many walks?
5 total.
Oh, well, that's not bad. That's not Blake Snell-like.
I get it, but what happened in the first half, it's not like it just disappears.
I don't know, man. I feel like what happened in the first half was just he didn't have a spring training. It was weird. He was totally off from what he's typically doing, preparing for a season. I think Blake Snell is back to being Blake Snell. And if that's what you're going to get, and they're willing to eat some of the money, that would have to be a part of this deal. They've got to eat some of that money next year. I'd be willing to talk about Blake Snell. I would definitely be willing.
I just said that it sucks that Eovaldi and Scherzer are on the market because they can change a playoff outlook. Snell can do that.
Yep.
Now, he can change it in both directions. He could be what you're seeing in the last three, and you go, wow, now we've got a 1-2 punch in Sonny Gray and Blake
He can
Snell.
do for you what Dylan Cease just did for the Padres.
Or he could be the guy that doesn't even make your postseason roster because his stuff is so bad.
Yeah, he could be. Remember when the Yankees did the thing where they traded Jordan Montgomery and they got
Montas.
Frankie Montas, and then Montas got hurt like 2 days later?
Yeah, very
that
possible.
could also be Blake Snell for you. Unfortunately, you've got him for another year, so we'll see what happens there. Last thing, Mason Miller. Did you guys see this yesterday?
Yeah.
Whoa, dude. This was not a good look. So Mason Miller got frustrated in a win the other day afterwards. He was at the training table inside of the clubhouse, punched the training table apparently, and messed up his hand. He's going on the IL. He is no longer a trade option. I don't think the A's were going to trade him anyways. Dude, you can't be punching a table as we're closer and closer to the trade deadline if you're Mason Miller. What are you doing?
I'm so confused as to why he did that. It was an act of frustration, but you won.
Of all people, you're frustrated. Oh,
No, I get the act of
he
frustration.
pitched pretty well, it seemed
Well,
like,
that's
too.
what
I
I'm
don't
saying.
understand what
Is he
happened here.
pissed that he didn't have a strikeout in the game? Or maybe he's pissed because he wanted to get traded and they told him we're not trading you. And he's like,
Dang it.
son of a...
Yeah, I was skeptical if they were going to move him. This reminds me so much of what year was it when Devin Williams broke his arm or something?
When he was going into the play.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that was
like
22.
he punched the wall, either going to the playoffs or at the deadline. I was like, what are you
And then
doing?
Alex Reyes on the rehab assignment punched the wall.
I
that wasn't
forgot
great.
about that.
That was in Memphis, I think.
Don't punch walls. Don't punch training tables. Pretty simple.
You're going to
Training tables
punch something soft.
Punch a teammate.
All right, boys.
Well, they're
That's
soft.
it for today's edition of the Major League Baseball trade deadline.
Roundup.
Ask us anything coming up next.
It's hot out there, and if you're tired of paying high utility bills every month because your home's AC keeps running, it's probably because your windows aren't energy efficient. If yours are builder grade or over 8 years old, the seals are likely broken, air is leaking out, and you're probably paying a higher price in utility bills all year long. Window Nation's high-quality windows are built to last a lifetime. Right now, for every 2 windows you buy, you'll get 2 windows free. There's no limit to how much you can save. Plus, you could save even more with 0 down, no interest, or payments for 24 months. Window Nation windows come with a lifetime warranty and can be installed in 1 day or less. They were even recently ranked highest on Forbes' list best window installation companies. So you can trust Window Nation for high-quality, affordable windows. Stop paying more than you have to. Schedule a fast in-home estimate right now at 866-90Nation or go online at windownation.com. That's 2 free windows with every 2 you buy. 0 down, 0 interest, or payments for 24 months. 866-90Nation or windownation.com.
Hi St. Louis, Roman Berkey here with my friends from Together Credit Union. I like getting paid to save, whether I am at City Park or in my local Together Credit Union branch. With the new Empowered Checking from Together Credit Union, you get rewarded for saving, not spending. Get paid to save, like me, with Together Credit Union. Open your Empowered Checking account today. See you on the pitch, and thank you for cheering City SC.
Membership eligibility required. Visit togethercu.org for full terms and details. Together Credit Union, federally insured by NCUA.
ESPN has your chance to win free tickets to Primus and Coheed and Cambria, playing a co-bill next Saturday night, August 3rd at St. Louis Music Park. Find all the ticket details and find that chance to win free tickets for Primus and Coheed and Cambria right now, either at 101ESPN.com or on your 101 mobile app.
BK, let's get into Ask Us Anything. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. If you guys have any questions, sports or otherwise, let's get into this. Starting with this from the 314. Guys, if you were given $20,000 all-inclusive stay in Paris, tickets to all the events, time off from the boss, would you go or would you sell those tickets and spend the money at home? European vacation. You're going over to Paris. You're getting to see any event that you would like to see. It's all paid for. You can either go do it.
Am I going solo or is somebody going with me with that money?
So you could go somewhere.
Okay.
Go with somebody.
Yeah, I would take it. I mean, one, I'm going to Paris, which I think incredible in itself, and you don't have to go to all of the events. You have the tickets, you pick and choose. I mean, I would take that chance. My wife and I would go in a heartbeat. Plus, 100%. I'm there for the Olympics. If you turn that down, you're crazy.
Yeah, I would go as well.
The alternative is you get $20,000 to do whatever else you wanted to do.
But you'd probably be spending that $20,000, I would imagine, to go on some type of vacation. Sure. So maybe you don't want to do Paris, but it's cool to say I got to go to the Olympics.
That's what I was.
100%.
Yeah. I would love to say I just went to an Olympic event. Yeah. You know, because right now, especially this year for the Summer Olympics, I don't know if there's a lot of sports that really interest me, but I would go.
I would rather do the winter with hockey now that the NHL players are back.
But for the summer, this is the year I would love to go because I don't think USA basketball's they're the gold favorite. It's not a cakewalk anymore. It's been fun watching them struggle in their exhibition games. So I would absolutely do it. And you're right, it's Paris. It's Paris, you know, it's
freaking incredible.
It's beautiful.
There's two places I want to go in Europe more than anything, and one is Paris and two is Italy.
So, to your point on that, T-Bone, the 92 Dream Team, I saw this posted the other day on Twitter. 92 Dream Team faced 5 NBA players on their path to the gold medal. The 2024 the 2024 team for U.S. men's team faced 59 NBA players. Damn. It just becomes so much more of an international game. And that's not to diminish anything that the Dream Team accomplished. It's just to show how much basketball has spread internationally. I mean, just look at the NBA right now. You can see it. Probably 3 of the top 5 players in the league are international-born players.
A lot of that is probably because of that dream team that was put together.
Yeah.
That influenced so many kids probably that were watching that said, I want to play basketball.
Basketball Without Borders has been a really big thing. They've got a lot of different academies that have been started out in Africa as well. So, there's a lot of stuff that has happened to make it more international. I would love to see that. And we've talked about going over to Europe at some point in the next 10 years. So this would give us the opportunity to do exactly that without us having to spend our own money.
My question is,
I would love to do it.
My question is, would you need more than 20,000?
No, you could probably get it.
You think so?
20,000.
I mean, I've never been to Europe, so I don't know how expensive it is.
mean, if it's all inclusive, you'd be good. All right, from the 314, do you think that the Cardinals will wait until closer to the deadline to get scraps, or do you think that they'll make a deal at some point prior to Tuesday's deadline?
I think they try to get a deal done prior to Tuesday's deadline so you don't go up against it in the bidding war and try and get the deal done. But if you don't get one of those starting pitchers prior to Tuesday, I do think you just look at it and say, well, let's just get the best that we can. Like, I don't think we're going to be able to spend, if you're the Cardinals, the bidding war to get those players if it gets to the deadline.
Yeah, I think I'm going to lean towards they're going to have to wait until the deadline. I think they're probably trying to get something done, but when it comes to pitching, it is so hard to get a deal done early just because teams know, like, hey, if I've got Eric Fedde, who's got another year of control, if I've got Zach Eflin, another year of control, or Kikuchi, who's just a rental, man, the longer I wait till the deadline, the better the offers are going to be because somebody's going to miss out on somebody, and then they may have to pay a little bit more for me.
Exactly. Yeah, I think it's something that the Cardinals tend to do as well. If you think back to all of their deals, they've pretty much come on the day of the deadline in recent years. So I think that's probably when it will take place. Would you guys rather move on from Walker or Gorman in a trade? If you had to move on from one, would you rather move on from Walker or Gorman?
I think positionally where the Cardinals are at, I would rather move on from Gorman. I think you have the replacement for the now in Brendan Donovan, and then for the future, you got J.J. Weatherholt. And you've got Sajaci and Pareto. Like, you've got infielders. You don't have a whole lot of outfielders that I feel like can be there. And I know Walker is a major what-if, but I would much rather move Gorman because I also think I could get more in return for Gorman now than Walker.
Beyond that, right-handed bat.
Yep.
You just don't have guys that profile in your system as right-handed bats that could be stars at the major league level. Walker still is that. He profiles as that. I'm doing the Gorman side of things, and I'm not even thinking twice about it.
I'm with you. And like to your point there on Walker, like if I said name the top 3 right-handed bats in the Cardinals system, Walker would be one. I have no idea who I would say is 2.
Sajaci.
Next
probably.
And an infielder.
Right-handed bat.
Yeah.
Is what you're saying?
Sajaci. Yeah, and Herrera.
Well, I wasn't really thinking him because to me he's kind of graduated as a prospect, but yeah, you're
Walker
probably right.
has 2 though in that scenario. Walker's been up longer than Herrera has.
He graduated, but then he realized he didn't pass all the classes, and he had to go back to school and pass them.
His counselor screwed him over. All right, last thing here. Regardless of who the co-host would be, what time slot would you most want to be in for a radio show? Mine would be mornings. Now that I've had a family, mine always used to be afternoons.
Mine too.
And now that I have a family, like the mornings would be ideal because like getting up would suck. Don't get me wrong. You got to get up every single day for a 7 a.m. radio show by 5 a.m. Like by 5 a.m. That's brutal. But I know a lot of you do that as well. So like, I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's tough. Afternoons, getting in at like 11 o'clock and then being here until 6. Being here till 6 is the tough part. Just it minimizes the amount of time that I could spend with the little guy at home. It would mean that like if he does sports during the week later on in his life, it would be harder to be able to see some of that stuff. Mornings would be ideal.
Yeah, I mean, mornings have always been a goal of mine. Mostly, like, I like the idea of doing the mornings because you're the first person that people get to hear after the events of sports the night prior, but also on the personal life of it. Now with 3 kids, I mean, I'm up always in the morning already, so it doesn't really matter. But you know, I really enjoy and want the ability to be home at dinner every night and get to do the sporting events and be there when they get off the school bus. And so that's why the mornings always were so ideal to me because you get to be there for all of those.
I'm single, so I would say
T-Bone's like, YOLO!
Yeah, I'm a night owl.
T-Bone says overnights, baby.
I miss my 2 a.m. conversations with BK, but now he's got a kid, and now he's old. Now he goes to bed early.
Remember when you guys got mad at me when I wasn't responding?
I'm alone.
I'm still up until about
12
midnight.
to 2.
I'm typically asleep by midnight now. You get to midnight, I'm like, what?
Yeah, there's times when I get a text from BK at midnight. I'm like, wow, he's up! He's up!
Yeah. Hockey season is when I stay up till midnight, but when it's not hockey season, man, it's like 10 o'clock, 9 o'clock. I'm like, cool, let's go to bed.
I've done mornings, I think, twice, and then like filled in a couple of times as well when I was a part-timer here. And it's so odd because I am a night person. So, like, I stay up till about 2 a.m. most nights. Yeah. And I get my 5 hours. I'm good. It was so odd when I'd, like, go to bed at 10 o'clock. When I was, at the time I was living with my grandparents, I'm like, oh, my God, they're beating me. They're going to be up later than me.
Somebody on the text line said, people in construction get up at 5 a.m. every day. Some even earlier. Poor baby. Talking on the radio for 4 hours. How difficult. First of all, we do 3 hours, sir. Second of all,
we couldn't do 4.
I'm not telling you that it's difficult. I'm saying that getting up, as somebody that does tend to stay up a little bit later, it would be a massive change in my
because you still have to stay up and watch those sporting events. Like for most people that do have to wake up that early, they don't stay up through I mean, my dad's this person with pest control. Like he's up at like 4 or 5 in the morning. So typically he texts me the next morning, like, what happened in the Blues game?
Exactly.
So like you miss that, and we're still staying up for those.
Hey man, you figure it out. Like you adjust, you'll be fine. I'm not telling you that it's the end of the world. I'm telling you that it would be a massive adjustment in my life.
I think the motto in my life has been, you figure it out, from like 2006. You know, when I got married, when I bought a house, when I got a job, when I had kids, it's, you figure it out, man.
Dude, you are not lying.
That's the motto of parents. It's just, you figure it out.
I will never forget 2021, me and Kara, we got engaged and then bought a house and then had our wedding. And between those 3 life events and then 2 years later having a kid, so in a 2.5 year stretch, we did all of that. We just crunched it all in. I was like, whoa, what happened to my bank account? And to your point,
you figure it out.
You figure it out.
Yep.
With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. T-Bone, you'll eventually figure it out. Coming up next, the wildcard standings are starting to set off some alarm bells. I don't know if you guys have looked at it over the last 24 hours or so, but we'll talk about that next here on 101 ESPN.
When I was on with you last time, I told you guys the Cardinals are not a playoff team. I'm going to come on again today and tell you they are not a playoff team. However, I have been impressed how they have played, and I've been really unimpressed about the National League in general. And so we have real parity where, yes, you have a chance to win. But you asked me, you put me on the radio, you want me to tell you what I think? I just told you.
That was Jim Bowden on with us earlier this week saying he does not believe that the St. Louis Cardinals will make the postseason. With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Alex, as of today, he's right. As of today, the Cardinals are officially out of the wild card standings. Atlanta is in the first place wild card spot. They are a half game up now, only a half game up. Man, Atlanta is really scuffling. 3-7 in their last 10. They've lost 5 in a row. It's not going well for the Braves. The Mets are then a half game back of them. The Padres have jumped the Cardinals. They are 1 game back of the Braves, a half game back of the Mets. This is all very jumbled up. Cardinals are a half game back of the Padres, and then a half game back of the Cardinals is the Diamondbacks, and then a half game back of the Diamondbacks is the Pittsburgh Pirates, and that's essentially where the wild card race ends right now. It is those 6 teams for 3 spots. Braves, Mets, Padres, Cardinals, D-backs, and Pirates. They are all separated from top to bottom by 2.5 games. By 2.5 games from the top to the bottom of that National League wildcard mix. Alex, when you see that the Cardinals, it is a little bit alarming to not see a dash, to not see a plus next to their name. Now they are games back in the wildcard standings. When you see that, what's your reaction to it?
Concern. I mean, it was the concern we thought about going into the second half. I mean, look, the Atlanta Braves are going through it right now. They've lost 5 in a row. So, Atlanta might be falling out of this thing fairly soon. But the concern has always been for the Cardinals, if you regress in the second half because your playoffs started on Mother's Day, these other teams are going to enter their playoff mode. And how do you fare when you might be out of gas? And, I mean, the Mets have won 4 in a row. The Padres have won 5 in a row. The Diamondbacks have won 7 of their last 10. And I know it doesn't mean a lot, but I always do this with hockey, and so I'm going to bring it into baseball. That run differential means something. And you look at the playoff teams right now, plus 49, plus 23, plus 29, you're minus 36, and the Arizona Diamondbacks are plus 22. And if I look at those teams around you, all of those teams with the exception of the Atlanta Braves because of their injuries, their offense is significantly better than yours. And then you're talking about, okay, well, what do those teams do that you might do better? I don't know if I trust this bullpen to be as elite as it once was. And your pitching staff, although good, if your offense is bad, that pitching staff doesn't matter, in my opinion. So it's very concerning, and I think it should be concerning for a lot of people when it comes to the Mets, the Padres, and the Diamondbacks, because if I'm the Cardinals and the Braves, I'm a little worried that we might not be in the playoffs by the end of the season.
I think my concern when looking at the standings, and we've talked about this, is when I am judging a playoff team, I am looking at, do you have a offense that can put up 4 runs and can slug? And do you have just dynamite pitching? And the problem that I have is when I look at the Cardinals, for example, with the rest of the field, I think they are second worst of the 6 teams that are in this run that we're talking about. Braves, Mets, Padres, Diamondbacks, Pirates. They have the second worst rotation, arguably maybe even the worst, depending on how you view the Mets and how you think about the Atlanta Braves. And then they've got probably the second worst offense of that group. And that's where I'm concerned, because I think the Diamondbacks are a better team than you. I think San Diego's better than you. And I think Atlanta, even with all their injuries, probably a little bit better than you, even though you won the season series from them. And the Mets, I would hear an argument on. The Cardinals just aren't great at anything. And their bullpen's starting to show some signs of weakness, and that was their strength, which you're going to need in October. That's why I said after that Pittsburgh Pirates series, that series showed you that the Cardinals are vulnerable, and they need to add and fix their needs. Otherwise, they are going to be a team that will fall out of this race. And as you've seen, and look, this thing's going to shuffle around for the rest of the 2-month stretch here in baseball. They're going to be going up and down in this race, and I think among these 6 teams, whoever fills their needs the best is the one that are going to make the playoffs.
I'm going to read you the top 3 starters for these teams that are in the playoff mix right now, all right? And you tell me if, you notice anything in particular about where these teams are at, who they are, what they have in their rotation compared to the Cardinals, for example. For the Braves, Sale, Morton, Lopez, that's without Max Fried, who's currently hurt, but Fried could fit into that mix pretty easily at some point.
Man, without Strider and Fried, that's still really good.
I know.
It's
dangerous.
Turns out trading for Chris Sale and getting super creative in the offseason was a smart thing to do.
Yeah, but the Cardinals could have never pulled that one off.
Yeah. The Padres, Cease, King, and Waldron, they do have a couple of guys on the IL that could eventually come back.
Darvish and Musgrove.
But King and Waldron have actually been really good for them so far this year. Both of them like 3.75 or below ERAs. One of them, I think it's King, if I'm not mistaken, has like a 10 Ks per 9 on the season.
We have a King on our team, too.
He's the
Very different.
Is King the one they got from the Yankees in the Soto deal?
I think so. I believe so.
Am I mistaken?
Pittsburgh. Do I need to say it?
No.
Please, it's fun.
Yeah.
Skeens, Keller, Jones. Pretty good top 3.
Sounds like a great law firm.
Jones hurt those, so we'll see. Oh, that does sound like a good law firm.
They could add somebody at the deadline, though. I think they probably should, honestly. Like, that is a team. I don't think they'll do
run
it.
into innings limits.
That's a team that should trade for Jack Flaherty.
Oh, man.
That's the team that should do it because he's not a super expensive deal. You could go there, pitch for them for the rest of this season. It's not like you're a long-term commitment. You don't need a front-end starter for next year. Like, go trade for Jack Flaherty. Let's see what it looks like with Flaherty, Skeens, Jones, Keller. That could be your top 4. You could put Jones into the bullpen if you're worried about the innings going into the postseason.
If I were them, I would have gone after Randy Arozarena.
Yeah.
I would have gone after
agree.
to get a bat to play in my outfield that is going to be a centerpiece for my team.
Arizona Diamondbacks, Gallen, Fott, Montgomery. And here's the other 2 teams that are currently in the mix.
Oh, this will be fun.
The New York Mets have Severino, Quintana, and Minaya.
Ugh.
I like the first one.
And the Cardinals have what the Cardinals have right now.
What? Say it. Say it with your chest!
Sonny Gray, Kyle Gibson, and
Lance
Miles
Lynn.
Michaelis.
Should be Palante, but they would never do
No,
that.
it should have been Sonny Gray, Andre Palante, and then insert third name here.
That, to me, and that's what they have currently. That's not what they could add at the deadline, and I think these teams are probably going to be more aggressive than the Cardinals will at this year's deadline. The thing that makes me concerned is that these teams all have better pitching than you at the front end of their rotation, which means that they're more likely to go on a playoff run, and their general managers are probably more convinced of that than the Cardinals are. And also, they're likely to be aggressive. The Braves, we know, super aggressive. The Padres, God bless it, super aggressive. The Diamondbacks just made a trade yesterday. The Mets have an owner that's willing to throw caution at the wind. And if you're going to piece things together around Pete Alonso prior to his free agency, you should be aggressive this year at the deadline. They should be a team that is also going in on some of these top-flight starting pitchers that could be available. Honestly, that's a team that makes a lot of sense for Zach Eflin as well. You're not chasing where they're at. You're chasing where they're going to be on August 1st. So you're already looking up at some of these teams based on their roster construction today and their records. The Cardinals have to take a strong look at where they're at and where they want to be, and that means making a move for a starter. That means adding a bat. This team needs a right-handed bat, and they probably need one of significance. And I just don't know where that's coming from, man. But when I saw the Randy Arozarena deal and I saw what they had to pay for him, it made me wonder, could the Cardinals get a bat for a little cheaper than what I'm currently anticipating?
But what other bats other than the ones we've talked about are out there that make a difference? Because you're talking Alonso and Guerrero Jr., and I don't think you're getting either of those guys.
I didn't expect Baltimore to be willing to look at a move like this where they've got a controllable right-handed bat that can platoon that is legitimately good against left-handed pitchers that they traded at
But
the
it's
deadline.
narrowed down for the Cardinals because I truly believe it's an outfielder. We've talked a lot about how the Cardinals don't value a guy that's just a DH. It's going to be an outfielder, and it's got to be a center fielder.
I don't think it has to be a center fielder. I would push back on that.
I think they're upgrading over one position, and you're upgrading over Michael Ciani, which I don't know how you're doing that.
I think I wouldn't love this, but if you get a guy that can play the corner outfield, you could put Newton in center. Or when Tommy Edman gets back, you could put Tommy Edman in center.
I think your team gets worse, in my opinion.
This is just against left-handed pitching, by the way. Yeah. Most days, the vast majority of the games, you would not be starting this alignment in the outfield.
I mean, I get that, but the left-handed...
And then Donovan goes to second base because Gorman has not been good again this year against left-handed pitching, and you could put Burleson at DH, where honestly, Burleson's been bad against left-handed pitching as well. You could go with somebody else as your right-handed option as a DH.
I go back to that Pirates series, the finale against a lefty, and you had somebody, and I know it was Carlson and Nootbaar and Edman are better, but you don't know if Edman's going to be back. So, like, I'm putting him to the side. I saw what it looked like when I don't have Michael Ciani in center field, and that cost me 3 runs and loses a ball game for the Cardinals. And that's why at the moment when Carlson made that diving catch and it missed, I said that is why Michael Ciani plays every single game for me, because otherwise I lose games that I shouldn't lose.
I think the problem, and like I'm not necessarily pushing back because I do agree, like Ciani, there's an argument to have him start even against left-handed pitching. Problem is like those 3 runs, you should be able to make up with that with an offense.
Not this
Problem
offense,
is right
though.
now is they can't, and that's why they've got an upgrade. Like if Nootbaar cost me 3 runs, for example, in center field, okay, well, whoever the left-handed bat I bring in, the way that you construct the lineup against a left-handed starter should be able to get 3 runs and not get shut down by Martin Perez.
I don't know who this guy is. I don't know who this mythical creature is.
I wish Luis Robert didn't suck and have injury problems because, honestly, he'd be the guy.
He would cost so much. Like, you're not at that point. If we're saying you can't get Garrett Crochet, you can't trade for Skubal, you can't trade for Robert. And that's where they are. And that's why, like, I think Mark Cannon is a guy that makes a ton of sense. I know nobody wants to hear it. Kevin Pillar makes some sense.
I just don't think those guys are difference makers that make your offense a 3 or 4 run offense.
Somebody mentioned earlier today, I think it was JP Morosi, who was on the morning show, if I'm not mistaken. He mentioned Matt Vierling as a guy that could be made available this year at the deadline. He can play center field. He has played center field in his past. He's a right-handed bat, 27 years old. He's from St. Louis. He probably wants to be here, and we know that's a big piece of whether or not the Cardinals are going to be able to bring you in. He's been pretty good against left-handed pitching this season. Has a 265 average, hits for a little bit of pop as well. That's maybe the type of guy that you could go out there and look for. He's got a 475 slugging percentage.
Maybe I'm being too greedy with this, but it just feels like if you're going to go get a bat, I feel like I want a bat that's going to be able to play in all scenarios. Just because, like, I know your offense is better against righties, but it just feels like it, even against righties, it's always roulette with this offense to where I don't know if they're going to come out and score 5 or 6 runs or score 1 or 2 runs.
But you got to help yourself. Like, that's the thing.
No, I'm with you.
The same thing we said about Eflin in your rotation. Is it the perfect addition? No. But if the perfect addition doesn't exist, you shouldn't just not make any addition.
No, I'm with you on that.
You shouldn't be saying, you know what, because we can't go out there and get the Bryce Harper of righties going up against left-handed pitching, like, who are you going to go out there? I think you need to get some help somehow.
Yeah, I'm with you.
This could be the type of thing that does that.
It just always comes back to Mark Canna or Tommy Pham for me. And I don't think they go get Tommy Pham. I think Tommy Pham's somewhat into the Jack Flaherty conversation that the front office isn't going to want that player back.
They could have had him for nothing when they desperately needed an outfielder in spring training, and that always is something that weighs
desperately
on my mind.
need an outfielder. Did you see Michael Sinise?
Yeah. At the time, I didn't believe that he could be an everyday starter.
He turned into Michael Ciani in like a matter of a month. It was amazing.
He's Alex, that's T-Bone, I'm BK. Guys, somebody on the text line brought up Cody Bellinger. I saw an article earlier today, I think it was ESPN.com, that wrote, hey, who should trade for Cody Bellinger at the deadline? And they said the Cardinals. First of all, not happening. Second of all, I just don't have interest. I don't have interest in Cody Bellinger. He's got another year of control. I think it's like $20 million.
I wanted him last year before he went to the Cubs. Because I was thinking the same thing that the Cubs were, where it's like, hey, let's see if we can just get a rejuvenation from a guy. And like that 307, 881 OPS with 26 home runs last year, he's not the same guy.
He's been good against lefties. Somehow.
I mean, and he's an outfielder.
Yeah, play center. But
he can play center for you. He could start for you in center field.
I'd be shocked if the Cubs were to trade him in the division to the Cardinals.
Yeah. Would you guys consider Randall Grichuk?
I would, but I don't know why Arizona would move him because they've got a perfect platoon between him and Jock Peterson.
You know what I actually like? I don't mind the idea of Cody Bellinger. It won't happen because of the Cubs, but I honestly do not mind the idea of Cody Bellinger. Man. Michael Conforto's probably still floating around.
325 against lefties this year.
What's Michael Conforto doing? Oh, he's a lefty. Never mind.
You don't want that.
He's going to be a Brewer's, my guess.
I love that guy.
I
think Canna's going to be a lefty, or going to be a Brewer as well.
I'm going to get both.
Yeah.
Dang it.
They'll just platoon that spot in the lineup.
Mark Canna's just going to ruin. Mark Canna's going to ruin Cardinals fans this September, and we've been asking for him for 100%. A month.
They're going to get Jack Flaherty. They're going to get Mark Canna. Like, they'll make it in one move, and they'll get Chafin as well, and we'll just.
That's just the Brewers trolling the Cardinals.
Yeah. That's what they're going to do.
I'm a Brewer fan.
I think
go get Tommy Pham.
If you guys had to predict today where Jack Flaherty goes, where would you predict it? Because I think the Brewers make a ton of sense for him.
Yeah, I mean, the Brewers, I think the Orioles.
They desperately need a front-end starting pitcher.
I think the Orioles, too.
I think Baltimore's the one for me.
I don't think Baltimore does it.
San Diego. Didn't Mike Schilt love Jack Flaherty?
Yeah, that's
San Diego. And then you go get another one when Darvish and Musgrove come back. Now you got 4 dudes that you're worried about.
The Mets could make some sense there, too.
Yeah, I don't have an idea of what the Mets are doing. I don't think they really know because every report that's come out of New York is like the Mets are basically like sitting on their hands and like
which is
mine
stupid.
at a relief.
Yeah, because you've got to pick a lane if you're them because of the Pete Alonso.
Well, I think Stearns has already determined he doesn't want to keep Pete Alonso. That's my guess.
But if you're going to do it for this year, if you're not trading him at the deadline, you might as well give yourself a chance to win with him.
Brandon, I don't want to ruin get rid of our nice prospect pool and hurt ourselves 3 years down.
God, I hate the way that general managers operate in 2024. Even though I understand it, I hate it so much.
It's not your job, Brandon.
I know, it sure isn't. Coming up next, what is my job is to win in fantasy football. Unfortunately, T-Bone steals all my money every year, so we're going to give you some advice coming up next year on 101 ESPN. With Alex and T-Bone on BK, let's do something that we're going to do each and every week prior to the start of the NFL season. It is Fantasy Football Friday, ladies and gentlemen. Each Friday, we're going to try to give you some advice about what you should do with your fantasy team. Alex is bad with the quarterbacks, but generally speaking, I'll give credit where it's due. He's pretty good with the fantasy football stuff.
I'm bad with a 14-team super flex league. That's what I'm bad with, and an auction draft.
Hey, man, just look in the mirror and understand all of us have our blind spots.
Look in the mirror, Mr. 10th place every year.
I was getting to myself. I had only gotten to you. T-Bone's actually good about fantasy football, even though I hate it.
Shut up.
I think I give good advice. I just don't typically listen to it. And I'm a terrible commissioner for a fantasy league.
Oh, well, that is a guarantee.
See, I was going to get to me. You just had to give me a second.
As soon as you start looking yourself in the mirror, Ferrario, you can win a championship.
Shut the hell up. What is wrong with you guys?
So we're going to go through some of the biggest questions heading into the fantasy football season, try to give you our biggest fantasy advice. And if you listen to it, hopefully you do well this year. All right, let's start out with the quarterbacks, Alex. Dak Prescott last season.
My area of weakness.
Don't listen to Alex on this.
Don't even come to me.
Alex, Dak Prescott led all pocket passers last year in fantasy points. If you look at the pocket passers this season, who do you think is most likely to do that in 2024?
What was the top 5 last year? Do you have it in front of you?
Thanks for asking me. I can try to get that up for you here.
While you're looking, here are the 2 that come to mind for me right now. Aaron Rodgers and Kirk Cousins. Those are the 2 that come to mind. And because of Rodgers' long absence last year, and I think I would lean towards Kirk Cousins with that offense. My only hesitancy with that, though, is because I don't really know if they're going to get Michael Penix Jr. into these games and what it's going to look like. But I think with the weapons that you're talking about, with Bijan Robinson being such a multi-weapon to use, I would say Kirk Cousins, Jared Goff would be the other one I'd think of.
All right, other guys that were in this conversation last year. Dak Prescott was number 1 among pocket passers. Jordan Love was number 2, Kirk Cousins 3, Brock Purdy 4, C.J. Stroud was 5 last season.
I like C.J. Stroud, yeah. Yeah, especially with all those weapons. I still like Kirk Cousins, though, with that offense and having multiple pieces that you can go with. I'll lean towards Kirk Cousins, but I do love me some C.J. Stroud.
Yeah, I'm torn between 2. Stroud was the first name that came to my mind. The other one, and I think it just comes down to if he's healthy, I think you'd see a really big rebound year and a big fantasy year from him is Joe Burrow. If Burrow's healthy, he'll be in the pocket. He's not going to be running around, especially with his calf that bothered him last year. I could see where Burrow has a bounce back year, and you look at him and go, okay, he ends up moving up that ranking and could finish right around where Dak is.
Come on, boys. It's Patrick Mahomes.
No, it's not.
He's not a pocket passer.
Who's he throwing to?
It's Patrick. Dude, have you looked at any of the videos coming out of Chiefs camp?
Yeah, he's overweight, man.
Xavier Worthy, Hollywood Brown, Rashee Rice, who I don't know if he's going to get suspended or not, but eventually he'll be back. You'll be good to go with him.
Kadarius Toney's at running back.
Kadarius Toney at running back now. You got a receiver in the backfield. They got a rookie tight end, and Jared Wiley, who might be adding another presence for them in the passing game.
The Raiders just told you've got Kermit the Frog as your quarterback.
Dude, the Raiders done messed up. No, that was not a smart decision by
Max
them.
Crosby is so going to annihilate.
Mahomes is going to finish the season as the number 1 fantasy quarterback this year among pocket passers. I genuinely believe that to be the case. He's my number 1 guy. All right, next thing up, we're getting to the running back position. Among the top 10 current running backs that are being drafted, Alex, who would you view as the riskiest pick? Here they are. Christian McCaffrey, Breece Hall, Bijan Robinson, Jonathan Taylor, Saquon Barkley, Jahmyr Gibbs, who you had last year and hated every second of it.
Also,
you were very mad at Dan Campbell.
He was a very risky pick.
Travis Etienne, Kyron Williams, Devon Achane, or Derrick Henry. Among those top 10 running backs being selected this year in fantasy drafts, who do you view as the riskiest proposition?
Man, right now the 2 I'm looking at are Kyron Williams and Jonathan Taylor. And the only reason I'm bringing up Kyron Williams is the injury history. Because when he's healthy, he's one of the top running backs in the game, but it's just the injury history with it. I think because of how last year went, Jonathan Taylor would be the riskiest pick for me.
That's kind of where I was. He's the one who dealt with a lot of injuries last year, and Williams did get hurt. The other thing that goes in the negative for Williams is he dealt with a foot injury in OTAs. Now, everything I've read, he's healthy and he is a full participant in spring or in training camp. But I think the answer for me is Jonathan Taylor. I worry about his injury history.
I just don't know if I could force myself to take Jonathan Taylor in the first round.
So, for me, and it's not going to be a popular pick, it's Saquon Barkley. I've got a lot of injury questions about Saquon as well, but it's twofold for me. One, are the touchdowns going to be there for him? because they do have the tush push, and that's a big deal. When you get down by the goal line and you've got somebody like Jalen Hurts that's going to take a ton of touchdowns away from Saquon Barkley, dude, each one of those touchdowns is basically worth 60 rushing yards for a running back. That's not something worth sneezing at. And the other thing is he gets a lot of his value out of the passing game. Jalen Hurts doesn't really throw to the running backs. If he's going to throw to a running back for a dump down, he might as well just run because he has so much value with his legs. I am a little concerned about a 27-year-old Saquon Barkley going to a new system this year that's going to throw the ball a lot. We've seen Kellen Moore in the past. He likes to throw it around. I don't think Jalen Hurts is going to target the running back. There's a lot of injury questions here. There's questions about the value of Saquon Barkley by the goal line. We've seen the Eagles in the past use 2 or 3 running backs over the course of the regular season. Saquon, to me, is a bigger risk than what people are letting on, especially when you're taking him that high, and I can get a superstar wide receiver instead. I'm a little worried about Saquon heading into the season. Got the name value, not sure about the production. Wide receiver, Alex, in your opinion, which of these wide receivers is most likely to finish with the most fantasy points in all of fantasy football this year? Here's the top 5 currently. CeeDee Lamb, Tyreek Hill, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Amon-Ra St. Brown. You could say somebody else, but those are the top 5 fantasy guys going right now. Who do you think will finish with the most points in fantasy?
I think this is easy. It's CeeDee Lamb. And I know he's holding out. He's going to be there for week 1, and that team has nobody else to throw to. They also had nobody else to throw to last year, and CeeDee Lamb was still one of the most productive wide receivers in the game last year. If I was looking at that, the one guy that I would put into this conversation is Stephon Diggs. I just don't know how many targets he's going to have because there's so many weapons in Houston. But if Stroud and Diggs get on the same page, I mean, you're talking about another 1-2 punch. I'll go with CeeDee Lamb, though. I think that guy's going to be dominant.
If you want a little inside information on Houston, I talked to my buddy yesterday who covers the Texans down in Houston. He said Stephon Diggs is not only fitting in well with Houston, he's already become one of the 3 biggest leaders on the team. He said, I'm shocked to see it. He thinks that Stephon Diggs is going to have a monster season.
I'm telling you, that team, to me, is the second most dangerous team in the AFC this season behind Kansas City because if Joe Mixon stays healthy, I mean, that offense is going to be lethal. And we already saw what coach's name is completely blanking on me right now for the Texans. God, what's his name? Regardless, Raheem Morris. Nope.
No, he's with Atlanta.
Yeah, regardless, their head coach showed the ability to get the best.
Is that who you're talking about?
Yeah, D'Amico, thank you. Showed the.
I thought you're talking about like their OC or something.
No, their head coach showed the ability to get the best out of that defense last year. So I think that team is going to be the second most dangerous. So Diggs would be up there, but I'll still say Lamb.
Yeah, I think Tyreek Hill's the guy for me that's going to have the most points in fantasy football. I think he was up there last year as well. He gets a ton of receptions, and like when he gets receptions, it's not little dink and dunks either. He catches them and he's got like 20 yards. You know, like it's unbelievable the way that offense works. If I had to go with an outside shot outside the top 5, mine would be Puka Nacua of the Rams, because I've seen when Stafford falls in love with a target, he just goes to them all the freaking time. And he did that when Kupp was healthy and was in his prime. Kupp's not that guy anymore. I expect he's probably going to miss time again this year. And then they only have one other legit wide receiver, and it's Puka. So I would say an outside shot of the top 5 for me is Puka Nacua.
Is it crazy if I go with Jamar Chase for this?
I worry about the targets with Chase and Higgins.
Yeah, they don't really have a tight end this year on the roster. They got rid of their running back who took some of the targets last year as well. I think Jamar has a chance to have just a monster season in 2024. If you're going for somebody other than Tyreek or CeeDee, who I think are the clear-cut top 2 for this, I would go Jamar Chase as my next one up. All right, next thing, Alex, we'll get out of here on this. If you had to put your claim on the tight end that is outside of the top 5 in draft this year, outside of the top 5 drafted this year, that will finish as a top 3 fantasy tight end, who would it be? Laporta, Kelsey, McBride, Andrews, and Kincaid are the top 5 tight ends currently in fantasy drafts. If you had to take somebody outside of that group, who do you think is most likely to finish as a top 3 tight end?
Man, it's either Kincaid, or no, I'm sorry, Kincaid was on this one. So I'm going to go with Jake Ferguson from Dallas, because I know how Dak loves his targets, and they're typically the tight ends, and because their running game is not anything scary, and CeeDee Lamb is the only guy there, I would put Jake Ferguson in that conversation. He seems like a touchdown type of ceiling guy when they enter the red zone.
I am going to go ahead and go next, T-Bone, because I'm going to say the guy that makes all of us throw up in our mouth after drafting him over the last couple of seasons. It's Kyle Pitts.
Oh.
I don't know if it's going to happen.
You remember your riskiest pick at running back? That's the riskiest tight end pick.
I don't know if it's going to happen, but if it hits this year, it's going to hit because he finally has a quarterback. Think about the quarterbacks that have been throwing him the ball over the past few seasons. It's been a poo-poo platter. unlike anything you've seen, and his coach had no idea how to utilize him correctly. I don't think he was healthy all of last season either. So you add all this up. Yeah, Kyle Pitts didn't produce last season. As a rookie, though, he had like 1,000 yards, which never happens among NFL tight ends. He did it, wasn't healthy, had a bad situation, bad quarterbacks, bad offensive coordinator a year ago. Now you've got a good offensive coordinator in there, a quarterback who has shown a propensity to use the tight end in the past with TJ Hawkinson putting up big-time numbers with Kirk Cousins in Minnesota when healthy. I think Kyle Pitts has a real chance to be a top 3 tight end this year.
I so am afraid of that one that I understand the argument for it. I think the one for me, and it is an outside shot, so, like, hear me out here, is Evan Ingram of Jacksonville. I don't know who Lawrence is throwing the ball to. Like, I know he's got Christian Kirk still, but outside that, like, Gabe Davis is his number 2. Ingram's going to get a high target share again, and he had almost 1,000-yard receiving season last year. I could see where Ingram becomes his favorite and really starts to leapfrog up this list.
I see a lot of people texting in Dalton Schultz. I thought of him, but the problem with that is I just don't know how he's going to get passes.
Dude, there's so many targets.
Yeah, he got 4 guys.
He was there last year, too, right? Like, his numbers weren't necessarily great when he was there.
Here's the one that I'm a little wondering about. One, because the guy stays injured, Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely.
Sure.
Do you find a way to go a 2 tight end package now because Likely was so good down the stretch?
They don't really have receivers.
You got Bateman and Flowers, and that's it.
That's it.
I think you might have. And plus, I just don't trust Andrews to stay healthy.
More. I'm doing a bunch of best ball drafts right now, and he's a guy that I'm targeting late in drafts all the time.
One tight end that I would target late in the draft is, and I think he would finish top 5 if he started the year healthy, but he's not going to, is Hawkinson with Detroit.
I just don't know how long he's going to be out.
It sounds like 6 weeks, but
I'll put that on my injured list.
I would draft him and
put
him on that. I had him last year. I've had him the last 2 years. He's a guy that, like, he's not great. But he's going to be on your roster. You're going to get 10 to 15 points every week.
You got to trust the quarterback.
Yeah.
And I don't trust the quarterback.
All right, coming up next, let's play a game of Hold 'em or Fold 'em. T-Bone has some prospects from the Cardinals system, and we get to decide, are we holding on or are we deciding to fold the Cards now? We'll talk about that next year on 101 ESPN.
Terry Hendricks Near Day Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Cardinals back in action tonight as they start a 3-game set with the Washington Nationals. 7:15 will be first pitch. Mackenzie Gore will get the start for Washington, and Sonny Gray will be on the mound for St. Louis. The Sports Center update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
All right, T-Bone had an idea for us. It was called Hold'em or Fold'em. He told me before the show, I'll have the song ready to go for you,
T-Bone's
BK.
got the itch for blackjack.
And then this is the song that we get to come back with, Alex.
Well, you can't just return with the classic, which is where this came from.
To know when to hold 'em. Know when to fold 'em. Know when to walk away. Know when to run. You never count your money when you're sitting at the table.
All right, so that's
right
the
on the
game
lips,
we're
Kenny
going to play.
Rogers.
We're going to play a game of Hold'em or Fold'em here on BK and Ferrario. T-Bone, explain what you got for us today.
All right, so I am going to name off a couple of prospects, minor leaguers, and maybe even one guy or two that are here on the big league roster. And you're going to tell me if they were asked for in a trade deadline package, you would either hold them or you would say, nope, fold it. I'm cashing them in, and I'm going to get what I'm getting in return.
And understand up front, this is all depending on who the player is, right? Like if you're going to trade Jordan Walker, for example, you're not getting Eric Fetty in return.
You're getting the equivalent of the player you're trading away.
Just want to throw that on the front end. It's not saying get rid of him at all costs. Like, okay.
Yeah, save your punny joke. Oh, the Cardinals will give him up for Tyler Anderson.
T-Bone, what do you got?
Guys, hold them or fold them. You mentioned him, Jordan Walker.
I'm holding him. There's nothing that is likely to be traded at this year's deadline that would incentivize me to trade him.
If we're talking deadline, holding him, and it's not even a question. If you're asking me in the offseason, I am going to seriously debate that conversation because I got to know what Jordan Walker is and how he's been this season. What is going on in this kid's head so I know if he's able to do this or if I'm going to have to fold him in the offseason. But deadline, hold him.
I'm not folding him in the offseason either. I'm holding him for one more year. And then I'll make the call on it.
I'm with you guys.
You got to know when to hold them, though, man.
Yeah, got to know when to walk away. Hold them or fold them. Ivan Herrera.
Fold him. He's probably going to make people pay, but with Wilson Contreras, and it's very obvious they value defensive catchers more than a guy who's got offensive upside. I think he might be your best chip, whether it's at the deadline or in the offseason, but I'll just go off the deadline. If you want to have the upper hand over teams to acquire Eric Fetty or Zach Eflin, I know it's going to seem expensive.
I'm not trading him for those guys.
Those are the only guys that are available to you, and it might be the only way you could get him because you're going to have to give the upper hand. I just don't know what Ivan Herrera's role on this team is. If he's not up here now as the right-handed bat off the bench, I don't see what his role is.
I think Ivan Herrera is a really good player, and I think Ivan Herrera has a ton of value, and I think Ivan Herrera could help you get the right-handed bat that you're looking for. Because if they don't view him as being that bat, I don't know if that's going to change next year. That's my concern. Is like, okay, so what is the path for Ivan Herrera to be a regular player on this version of the Cardinals with Wilson Contreras on the roster, which is not expected to change anytime in the foreseeable future? If you called up the A's, for example, and the reason why I'm saying hold them is because I don't think that they're going to end up doing something like this. But if you called up the A's and said, hey, we'll trade you Ivan Herrera and two other players from our minor league system, Thomas Sajacy and a pitcher, are you willing to talk about trading us Brent Rooker for that? They say, no, it is what it is. But that's the kind of thing that I would be looking for. I'd be looking to use Herrera to upgrade that spot, the right-handed hitting spot in your lineup. If you can't do that, I'm not trading him. So I don't think they're going to do it. I would hold him. He's a good hitter, man.
I'd hold him as well. One from the Major League roster. Hold him or fold him. Andre Pallante.
Hold him. Andre Pallante, since what, May, has been the best pitcher on your team.
Yeah, but we got Lance Lynn.
That is exactly why I'm holding him, because I don't want to have to go down the Lance Lynn front next season and bring in somebody for $13 million that isn't going to fare for me. I'm holding on to that dude because whether he's my fifth or sixth guy next season, he is competing for a rotation spot. I need depth. It's been apparent this season because Drew Rahm's nowhere to be found.
Man, I guess it depends what the interest level is. Like, if is Andre Palante the thing that is going to prevent me from getting the starter that I'm looking for? Because I could totally see a team like the Rays saying, hey, if you're going to trade for Eflin, we need to get Andre Palante in return. I could see it. Controllable. They could figure out a couple of things that they want to change with his arsenal, and they're going to maximize him there and then trade him 2 years later. I could totally see something like that. I'd probably deal. I would. I'm going to say trade him. I'm folding.
Folding them. Interesting.
Man, we've been opposite on almost all of these so far.
I like Andre Palante a lot. I just don't see a massive upside there. He's already 25 years old. I think he's probably a back end of the rotation starter. I think this is what he's going to be. And I would like to hold on to him. But if that is the piece that it takes for me to go get the upgrade in my rotation, and he's probably the one that's going to be the odd man out anyways, I'd fold him.
I think I would hold him because he's the first cost control certainty, or not certainty, but cost control pitcher that you have right now. Hold him or fold him? Thomas Ajayci.
I'd like to hold him, but I'm folding him if I can get something for it. So I'm folding.
Yeah, I think
just like direct answer, folding.
I think I would say hold it because I would try and use Pareto before I would use Thomas Ajayci because Pareto's the lefty, Ajayci's the righty, and with the infield and potentially what you do this offseason of moving Gorman, I'm going to say hold him.
It's just hard for me to see what his role is here.
Yeah, same for me with Pareto. I think both are foldable for me.
I agree.
Hold him or fold him? Gordon Graceffo.
I'll fold him.
I think they've told you everything they think about Gordon Graceffo.
Yep.
Based on their usage this year, I'm folding.
I think I agree with you guys. Yep. Same answer for Michael McGreevy, I'm guessing. Hold him or fold him?
I would fold him.
What are we getting?
Whoa.
That's why I'm holding Andre Palante, by the way, because I know what those two guys are, and they don't trust
My
them.
AAA rotation is basically fold.
Honestly, yes.
Let's get to the AA rotation, which everybody seems to love.
This is different.
Hold them or fold them?
BK saying the entire AA is hold them.
Basically. Hold.
Absolutely
hold. No chance I'm selling on that for what's available this year at the deadline.
Absolutely.
All right. Hold them or fold them, Cooper Jerpy.
Hold them.
I'm holding. This one is a little more questionable to me because the way that they've been handling him is like, I think he's probably going to end up being a reliever for the Cardinals. I think a really smart team should be targeting Cooper Jerpy. I think a really smart team should be looking at him saying the Cardinals are mismanaging him. He also has some injury questions right now. He's been hurt a decent portion of the year. He's back on the injured list, I believe, right now. Funky delivery, big-time strikeout rate. Cooper Jerpy is a guy that I would be targeting if I'm a smart organization. But if I'm in Mo's shoes, I'm holding.
You got to make it really interesting for me to consider moving Jerpy.
All right, two more for you real quick. Hold him or fold him. This guy got traded last year when he was hurt. Hold him or fold him, TK Roby.
I don't think you're getting anything of meaning, so I'm holding right now and then hoping that next year he comes back and pitches well. And if he does, then I'm making the decision of hold or fold. But right now, I think you're selling too low.
I would just fold because I think he could be a part of a package to get a starting pitcher on the other side.
I guess it also depends how other teams view him. If they still view him as the asset that he was last year, because he was also hurt last year at the deadline. My guess is teams will say, well, yeah, he was hurt last year at the deadline, but the hope was he was going to get healthy, and then he was going to show the kind of form that he was prior to that, so that's what you bought at. I think he is a lower price today than he was this time last year, and because of that, 22 years old, starting pitcher, big-time stuff, I'm holding to hopefully extract more value after he, fingers crossed, pitches well the rest of the season.
All right, last one. We've kind of talked about this. Hold him or fold him, Victor Scott.
I think I'm holding because I don't think Michael Ciani is the long-term answer in center field. As much as I like him, I think you're hoping for a little bit more out of that center field spot, and I think Victor Scott presents that for you.
I think I'm folding. I'm concerned about the numbers in the minors, and I understand he's also a very young player, but for the next couple of years, I think you got Michael Ciani, and then from there, the next center fielder emerges. So I think depending on what the price is going to be of what you're acquiring, I would fold him.
I would hold him. That's where I am with them. All right, guys.
One
more quick one. Fold him, Chase Davis. First round pick from a year ago.
I'd be willing to fold depending on what offers.
I'll listen.
I don't know if you're getting anything as big to give him up, but he's an interesting one for the offseason.
He's one of those that I think I'd rather see what the rest of the season looks like, hear the offers in the offseason, and maybe give it one more year and see if he emerges.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you guys.
What I've learned today is BK likes to hold.
Yeah. for the most part.
And you just ripped on GMs. I hate it how GMs operate where they hold on to their prospects for 3 years.
BK's got a 13 while the dealer's showing 18. He said, nah, we're good.
I'm willing to deal from the surplus. Like Prado, so JC, I'm willing to deal from there. The AAA rotation, willing to deal from there. I told you Palante, I'd be willing to deal from there. One of the left-handed bats at the big league level right now, I'm at least willing to listen depending on what's available out there. The guys that I do not want to give up are basically the double-A pitching, because that's your only out right now in terms of a high upside pitcher. That's it. And that's what the Cardinals desperately need. So those would be the pitchers that I'm unlikely to deal from. The other thing is, like, this year at the deadline, if you told me that Max Scherzer was available of 2 years ago, if you told me that, I'm trying to think, like, Juan Soto is available, like, big-time pieces become available, yeah, that shakes a lot more loose from what the Cardinals currently have. But we know what's available this year at the deadline. It's a bunch of 3s and 4s. I'm not trading these really good, high-upside players for that. No, thank you. All right, coming up next, Alex Ferrario broke his toe this morning. He'll explain how it happened next here on 101 ESPN. With Alex and T-Bone on BK. Alex, what happened today?
Today was not a good day. You know those days where it starts off poorly for you. So I woke up, had to help Katie get the girls out the door because she had to go to the doctor's appointment with them. And so I got them, and I'm like, all right, cool, I'll get my morning started. So I went into the bathroom, showered, came out, went into our closet, and we have like tiny walk-in closet. And so I was kind of ruffling through the clothes to find shorts and a shirt, and all of a sudden I heard like a noise, like something was falling. I'm like, what the hell is that? And so next thing I know, you guys know those big black boxes that you put all of your information in and you lock it? They're like fireproof, that you put your social security card. Yeah, it's like it's like a black box. It's like this big like metal box that you lock. Yeah. And so it's up on our top shelf, and as I was pushing things around, this thing, and it has to weigh like 30 pounds, like, because it's like thick. It fell off the top of the closet, and it landed, and it didn't land on my foot. It landed on the middle toe, like sideways. It landed on the middle toe and like right on the nail. And I thought, I'm like, this thing's I collapsed on the ground immediately, and nobody's in my house, and I'm going, oh my God, I just broke. And I mean, this thing is like gushing blood, like in a horror film, the head goes off, it's gushing blood.
Nice.
I'm like crawling on the ground trying to figure out what to do. And so I get in the shower and I rinse it off, and the blood is still coming out. It's like, I don't know what to do. It's broken, probably. But you don't do anything for broken toes.
No.
They literally, you go to an urgent care and they're like, cool, we'll put something on it, and here you go.
Yeah, here's your stent. And
so
hopefully you can deal with the pain.
Maybe.
Here's a script for ibuprofen, essentially.
So I just put gauze on it, and we don't have Band-Aids in the house, so I just put gauze and medical tape around it. And I'm like, all right, well, YOLO. And so I put the sock on. I do a little slip on because I can't get my foot in a freaking shoe. And as I'm driving here, my sock, no jokes, looks like Kurt Schilling's sock in the World Series.
Oh, it's worse. His was ketchup, by the way.
Oh, was it? Well, mine's not ketchup. Mine is just gushing.
Oh, it's fake. I'll go on the stupid.
Are you going to be on the Stupiracy podcast?
We'll talk about it.
This sounds like somebody who doesn't like the Cardinals, you know.
They're slowly.
The whole Yankees-Red Sox thing from the early 2000s, all of it was made up by Major League Baseball.
This all comes back to you hating Derek Jeter. See?
Like, the whole thing was a facade. If he played for the Oakland Athletics, he would have been a really nice baseball player that we never think of ever again.
This guy's hate for Derek Jeter.
I know this is partially a bit and partially true hate. It just pisses me off.
It's mostly him.
I mean, Jeter was a fine player, but come on.
He's the one
We're
guy that
celebrating a singles
vote.
hitter. Come on, we've gone beyond that as a baseball watching community. We don't need to celebrate somebody that barely was able to get to 20 home runs at any point in their respective careers.
Halfway people love Arise and Quan right now.
Okay. Never won an MVP.
Because he played with A-Rod.
Yeah.
No, because he just wasn't that good. He was fine. Sorry.
Arenado's never won an MVP.
Yeah, but he finished.
As we've seen this year, overrated.
Look, PK was trying to argue, and he's like, oh, wait, I can't pull that one off.
He won 10 gold gloves. Well, you know what? You know what makes you a great baseball player?
You can make an argument that Arenado was overrated.
How many World Series does Arenado have?
I did just make an argument Arenado was overrated.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, like, I'm making that argument for Derek Jeter. We can make it for both. You can join the club,
At least
man.
the Yankees never traded Gomber for him, am I right?
Yeah. I should have
It's a
traded
cost-cutting move.
The biggest problem, the biggest fraudulent move of it all was Jeter staying at shortstop over A-Rod, who was very clearly the better shortstop of the two.
Jeez, man. What a load of bad takes right here.
Yeah. Man, I'm not wrong on this.
No, you are.
You're wrong. You're absolutely wrong on this.
Your foot feeling better?
No, man, it's not. My leg's tingling.
Feel your foot?
No, that's the thing. My leg's tingling. I don't know how much blood you're allowed to lose before it becomes a problem. But,
liters, man. You're good.
This sock feels like I put my foot in a puddle, so. Yeah. So it's going well. I went into the bathroom to find a Band-Aid.
For the next segment?
No, I've been sitting this entire show, and I'm honestly not. I'm a little worried what it's like when I stand up, but I'm here. BK would have called in sick.
We've agreed. We're not stopping the show.
I've been sick all week with my throat.
My throat's scratchy.
Oh, he's not going to be here Monday.
I'm playing hurt. Well, I'm not going to be here on Monday. You are 100% correct. I'm going to be on the morning show.
You're not going to be here, period, on Monday.
Oh, no, he won't miss his opportunity for his promotion.
On the show. We're going to get Buster Olney on the show.
On BK and Ferrario show.
going to join us.
Well, that's not going to happen.
With Alex and T-Bone on BK coming up next. If the Cardinals trade for a starter this year at the deadline, who stays in the rotation? We'll talk about it here on 101 ESPN. All right, so the Cardinals are tied to a bunch of different starting pitchers in the market. It feels like the one that they're most tied to right now is Zach Eflin. I don't know if that's a leak coming out of Tampa Bay, because I can tell you this, it sure as hell ain't coming out of St. Louis. They don't really have leaks this time of the year. They will not confirm, they will not deny, they will not tell you anything about what they're doing at the trade deadline. That's how they operate. So my guess is something is coming out of Tampa Bay that is indicating the Cardinals and the Braves are the two teams that are most seriously interested in Zach Eflin. Whether it's Eflin that they end up acquiring, or Kikuchi, or Fetty, Tyler Anderson, whoever the pitcher is that they go out and get, I think they're going to land somebody that slots into their starting rotation somewhere between 2 and 3. Alex, when that happens, not even if, I think when that happens, what does that mean for the current group of pitchers that are in your rotation? Who gets pushed out? How does that affect the way that you handle this pitching staff right now?
I mean, are you asking me or are you asking the Cardinals?
I'll ask you first.
Because if you're asking me, what that does is Lance Lynn moves to the bullpen. The player you acquire becomes your number 2, hopefully. And then you've got Kyle Gibson as your 3. Miles Michaelis technically would be your 4, but I would put Palante as your 4, and then you got Miles Michaelis. But my 5 starting pitchers are Gray, Acquisition, Gibson, Michaelis, and Andre Palante. That is my best rotation, and they cannot deny that. Now, if you're asking what the Cardinals are going to do, Andre Palante is going to be in Memphis because they're going to want to keep him as the starter. They'll look at this as, well, we're not going to get rid of Lance Lynn. Lance Lynn has got the clubhouse back together. The team's winning because of Lance Lynn and his grittiness.
And to be fair, in no scenario are you getting rid of Lynn.
No,
your scenario would be he goes to the bullpen.
Absolutely.
He becomes somebody that can help you out with like a bridge type of a reliever, or if you've got a string of righties that are coming up, he can help you out.
But see, the difference in this is I'm not getting rid of Lynn in this scenario. Lynn is still a part of my team. In the Cardinal scenario, Lynn is a part of the team and in the rotation, and Palante's not even a part of this team anymore. And that is a problem for me because Palante is by far one of your best options right now to be throwing out there. And if you're trying to get into the playoffs with other teams that significantly are better than you at offense, then you better emphasize the importance of starting pitching. And Lance Lynn starting every 5th day is not doing that.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think if you ask me, Palante's in your rotation after you acquire an arm, no matter who it is, and Lance Lynn goes to the bullpen role. And it's not like, Miles Michaelis, where if you put him in the bullpen, you go, well, is he valuable out of the bullpen? The answer for Michaelis would be no. For Lance Lynn, absolutely he is. He's great against right-handers. There is a lane for him if you put him out there. And he could be a guy that instead of having like a Chris Roycroft have to throw 3 innings when you need it, Lance Lynn can go out there and throw 3 innings for you if need be. Or he can come in high leverage potentially and be a guy that has a right-handed lane that you can take advantage of. But the Cardinals are going to do the classic, well, what's the easiest thing on our roster? What is the easiest roster move to do? And it's going to be to send Palante down to Memphis and have him continue to be stretched out so they have some depth in their minor league system just in case someone were to get hurt.
You wouldn't consider a 6-man rotation, right?
No.
I don't think you can. I don't think you can.
I think it spreads your bullpen too thin, and I don't think they have enough spots in the bullpen and enough guys from Memphis that you could be sending up and down because you have to leave them down for 15 days now. It makes it more difficult to be able to accomplish that. I don't think a 6-man rotation is viable until you get to September. In September, you might be able to do that. That's when the rosters expand, you get an extra bullpen arm, and now you could have Palante, and now you're spreading the wealth, right?
Yeah.
Before then, I think for August, it becomes really difficult to be able to accomplish that. And so that's really the conversation we're having is, for the month of August, what are your 5 starters? And I think that you guys are right. I think that's the way they would approach it, is keeping Lynn in and putting Palante down in AAA. And man, as you look at the results, it's really hard to say that that is the correct decision, because I do think Lance Lynn could give you value coming out of the bullpen. If you guys have looked this season, so what he's done against right-handed hitters this year are batting against Lance Lynn .229 with an OPS of .630. That'll play coming out of the pen, man.
I'm really sad that you brought up his numbers against righties, because I was just about to ask you after this, what if I told you I can get you a right-handed arm for the bullpen, and I was going to read off those numbers, and if you liked it, I would have said, guess what, he doesn't cost anything because he's already here. And
got
it's
a 25% strikeout rate against right-handed hitters as well. Against lefties, it's the opposite. Against left-handed hitters, they're batting .275 against him with an OPS of .825. Left-handed hitters become 30% above league average. Right-handed hitters become 20% below league average. It's massive splits against Lance Lynn so far this year. And if you have a lane of 3 straight righties, I want Lynn going up against those guys. He can easily get you 2, maybe even 3 innings coming out of the bullpen, and you live with the result. So if you're losing, he's a guy that comes into that game and hopefully can chase down that lead for you. If you're winning and you've got some of your back-end relievers that are off that day, dude, he can come in the 7th inning and get you that inning that day. I think it would be a really interesting way to utilize him. There's also some parallels to 2011, right? When he came in and immediately upon his arrival here in St. Louis, he was a reliever. That was his original role here in St. Louis. It's just not going to happen.
That's the best way to approach this team.
In my opinion, I agree with Alex. I think the best way that they can approach this, if they're just trying to maximize the current roster as is constructed, would be putting Lance Lynn into the bullpen. The way that I expect them to go about it is they will do what Alex said, which is put Andre Palante down in AAA, add to this bullpen via the deadline, and then have Lance Lynn as the number 5 starter.
And this is why, to me, the Cardinals really can't take that next big step, because you got to be heartless in situations when you're ready to become a dangerous team. Like, I don't think the Phillies wanted to trade away Sir Anthony Dominguez, but you know what? We got to improve in a certain area, and let's trade so we can improve it. And the Cardinals are going to look at this and say, well, we can't move Lance Lynn to the bullpen. Look at what he's done for us this season. That's a veteran. He needs to stay in our rotation and lead. And you got to be heartless. You got to put the best position players in their positions to succeed. And now you've been pushed out of a wild card spot. And guess what? Every 5th day, and I know Lance Lynn pitched fine in his game against the Pirates, but that was one time. And every other time with Lance Lynn, it feels like it goes 5 innings in the first 2 innings and then pitches a good game. That means every 10th time Lance Lynn, or every 10th day, you're going to put yourself in a vulnerable position to lose. And right now, you can't afford to do that.
Dude, I'm glad you mentioned that. Think about all the teams that have had success here in St. Louis, and like really think about the veterans that had to take some kind of a sacrifice to be able to make that possible. Like, think back to 2019. How many times have we had conversations about Steen and what he was willing to do in terms of the sacrifice of going down to the 4th line and being the guy that the Blues needed him to be that year?
Jake Allen as the goaltender.
That's not the role that he wanted to have, but he knew for this team to reach its full potential, for us to win the way that we plan to, I've got to be this version of myself. Vladimir Tarasenko played a very different role on that team, not in terms of ice time, but the way that he was playing, the style that he was playing that year than he had played prior to that. Why did he do that? Because he bought in. He bought into what the Blues were trying to accomplish that season. You look at what Albert Pujols was for the most part in 2022. He was a right-handed hitter that crushed lefties. He knew at that point in his career, hey, I'm not Albert of 2011, but I can be that guy specifically against left-handed pitching, and so that's going to be my role for this team. Matt Carpenter this year, he's not playing every day, but he's helping out the young guys. He's a leader in the clubhouse that they've needed, and that's the role that he's willing to take on. Everything I've heard about Lance Lynn this year, everything, and I'm telling you, this is people behind the scenes. Everybody that I've talked to says Lance Lynn has been an unbelievable presence inside of that clubhouse.
And I agree with that.
He's a part of why the Cardinals have been able to keep this thing on track despite the 15-24 start. He's been a consummate teammate, helping out the young guys. Like, he is a big piece of what the fabric of the clubhouse is, and you cannot lose that. But if Lynn is the type of dude that everybody says he is, and I believe it, like, I have no reason not to. This is not me calling him out or anything like that. I would think that he would be willing to accept a role change. But it comes down to the Cardinals being willing to ask him to accept such a role change. And the other thing is, you got to see that the other dude that is taking your role is better than you.
Yeah.
And man, if we're being honest, Palante's been better than him.
And I think you, as a Cardinals fan, you should be honest with it. Ollie's matched all of the tests we've put in front of him. He pushed Paul Goldschmidt down to the 7th spot in the lineup.
Goldie's willing to accept a new role.
He stops playing guys if they're not hitting in the position. Like, they've taken Gorman out of the game when he's gone through his slumps for a long period of time. Hell, we've seen Brandon Crawford play for a couple of times because he's hit better than certain guys. Like, he's done all of this.
Giovanni Gallegos became ineffective and was pulled out of the high leverage situations, you know?
Stopped using JoJo Romero for the longest time because he lost his stuff. Even if he was lying to us, like, they stopped doing it. He's matched all of these tests, but now I thought the Arenado and Goldschmidt was going to be the biggest one. I think the biggest one is going to be Lance Lynn, because I know how much Ollie appreciates a guy like Lance Lynn, and we saw that, what was that, last year? or 2 years ago, where if they would have gotten to game 3, Waino was pitching that playoff game for them. And I'm not saying Lynn's on the same level as Adam Wainwright, but I think the Cardinals appreciate Lance Lynn on the same level as Adam Wainwright right now.
Yeah, I mean, he's got the same level of
He's got the pedigree in the clubhouse right now, which I think is important, and that's why I believe the Cardinals just aren't going to be able to do that.
It's tough. If it was a clear, like, hey, it's 50-50 proposition, tie goes to Lance Lynn. There's no doubt about that. You got to lean towards the veteran. I give all of the veteran boost that you want to here. Palante's better. Like right now, if you're just looking at the two and you're looking at the resumes, and this isn't even just a Lance Lynn versus Palante thing, you could make a pretty strong argument that I think since June,
Palante versus Michaelis.
Palante versus every other starter not named Sonny Gray, he's been better. He's been your second best starter over the course of the last 2 months, basically. So next week, you'll see both of them get a start Monday and Tuesday, going up against the Texas Rangers, a legitimate threat in the AL playoff race right now that is now apparently trying to buy prior to the deadline. We'll see what they look like against that lineup. It's a pretty good lineup that's been playing a lot better lately. If Palante clearly outperforms Lynn, it should go a long way in deciding what the rotation looks like moving forward if and when this team decides to go out and add some kind of starter. And it seems like, based on all the reporting, Zach Eflin appears to be the favorite as to who the Cardinals would be adding at this year's deadline. Be interesting to see how they decide to approach that. For Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Coming up next, Mizzou's schedule, one of the biggest reasons for optimism this year for the team. How many things have to go right for them to end up in the college football playoff? We'll talk about it next year on 101 ESPN. Alex, there was a schedule difficulty chart that was released yesterday. The top 6 teams on that chart for college football this season, most difficult schedules in college football for 2024. The top 6 all reside in the SEC.
Nice.
9 of the top 10 reside in the SEC. 15 of the top 17 reside in the SEC.
I'm hearing playoffs.
Alex, there is one exception to that.
Uh-oh. Mizzou's number 3.
It's Mizzou. Missouri is not ranked in the top 30 when it comes to most difficult schedules in the country this season. Florida 1, Georgia 2, Vandy 3, Arkansas 4, Mississippi State 5, Oklahoma 6, Kentucky 8, Alabama 9, South Carolina 10, Auburn 13, LSU 16, Texas A&M 17, Texas 19, Ole Miss at 20, Tennessee at 26.
You know why all those teams have such a difficult schedule, T-Bone? Because Mizzou's on them.
That is part of it.
It's this crap.
The SEC has a lot of teams that are facing a really tough schedule
They
this
must
year.
have overlooked Mizzou's first game, though, against Murray State. That's going to be
none more so than
barn
Florida.
burner.
Florida's schedule is absolutely absurd. I legitimately feel bad for Billy Napier.
Did you see he has the best odds to be the first coach fired this year?
Well, yeah, with that schedule.
I was shocked just because I thought Sam Pittman won that award.
Dude, Billy Napier has legitimate pressure on him going into this season. The recruiting has not been going great. And his schedule this year, Miami, Texas A&M, Tennessee, Georgia, Texas, LSU, Ole Miss, Florida State.
Wow.
That's the way that they finished
brutal.
this year.
Sorry,
Georgia,
Florida.
starting on November 2nd through the end of the season, Georgia, Texas, LSU, Ole Miss, Florida State. 5 teams that all have college football playoff aspirations on day one. Good luck. Texas A&M, college football playoff aspirations. Miami, legitimately really good team heading into this season. Whew. If they win 5 games, it might be a minor miracle. All right. The reason why I bring this up for Mizzou, Alex, there's a lot of reasons for optimism heading into this season. The schedule is one of them. The roster is another. The coach figuring things out and seemingly being a pretty good coach at this point, another. Offense coordinator coming back. What is your level of anticipation knowing all of this about the schedule heading into 2024 for Mizzou?
I mean, it heightens it even further than what it already was. I mean, like I understand the schedule difficulty is going to be looked in like, oh man, Mizzou's got the clear path to the playoffs, but like we all know how it goes. You're going to lose at least a game, maybe 2. Well, we know it's Mizzou, man. Like I can't forget about this.
Man.
They always seem
That's
to
my
lose
role on the show.
They always seem to lose a game that makes you a little disappointed.
Thinking
but
Murray State.
I'm thinking Murray State or Buffalo, one of the two.
Or the really tough road trip to UMass.
One of those two are going to be a barn burner for Mizzou.
That was the thing that changed last year. Last year was the first time where that really didn't happen. Now, the LSU game was frustrating, but
that's what I mean,
the best player in the country beat you.
But that's what I mean,
Jaden Daniels wins the Heisman and single-handedly beat you.
That's what I mean. You're going to lose a game that looks like they should have won, and they find a way to lose, which is infuriating because you look at the schedule and knowing that it's an easier one compared to most SEC teams, you're thinking this team is going to have a very successful season, but it does heighten the optimism if there was an ability to make it even higher because of what this offense is going to look like, because of the amount of returning players and personnel. Like Mizzou has, I know I was being sarcastic and cheeky there at the open, they legit have a path to a college football playoffs right now.
Not just a path, an expectation.
Yeah,
like they have three games this year, in my opinion, are like toss-ups or potentially losses. At Texas A&M, now plus side, that game's at 11 o'clock. It's on the road. You don't want to play at Texas A&M at Kyle Field at night. It's just not something you want to have to deal with. You never want to have to play there, but if you're going to go there, 11 a.m. is probably the preferred outcome in terms of the time of that game. You go to Alabama, that ain't going to be easy. And then you've got a home game against Oklahoma. Those 3 games will decide the ceiling for the 2024 season, so long as what Alex just said about the game that kind of trips you up doesn't take place. As long as they take care of business against the teams they should, those 3 games will decide the outcome. You basically have to go at least 1 and 2 to be able to have your shot at the college football playoff.
Win 2 of those 3 and don't have a slip up, you're a playoff team.
If you beat Oklahoma at home and take care of business at every other turn on your schedule, and you lose against Alabama on the road, you lose against Texas A&M on the road, you're probably going to the college football playoff. You're on the outside, like you're like 10 to 12, but 10 and 2 in the SEC with those wins, you probably get in.
Where I'll be fascinated, because to that point there, I think you're right. But, I mean, we just said they don't have a tough schedule compared to SEC standards.
But they're an SEC team.
Sure, but...
And that'll get for
I think if it comes down to, and again, it's hard to picture someone having a better record or a better resume. But if your only 2 losses are Alabama and A&M, and your only one really big win is home against Oklahoma, that's a soft resume if we're looking at it. I mean, that schedule is not hard, and they should win every game at home except the toss-up, maybe Oklahoma. Like, they're the resume builder, like some of these other teams are going to get because of the tough SEC schedule.
Sure.
I don't know if Mizzou's going to get, but they can also get the opposite effect of that, which is, hey, everybody else got to go beat the crap out of each other. Meanwhile, here we are sitting on our little island with it not as tough a schedule.
Last year, an example of what I'm talking about as to why I believe that Mizzou would end up getting in was Ole Miss. Ole Miss finished the year, I think, ranked like 11th or something like that. They were in the top 12. And their best wins on the season were LSU and Tulane. That was it. Those were their best wins on the season. Their losses last year, they ended up going 10-2 in the regular season. At Alabama, they lost 24-10, and at Georgia, they lost 52-17. There's your path. What happened last year with LSU is pretty much the way that Missouri would have to get into the college football playoff if they end up having a similar type of season this year. And I think they can do that. I think that should be the expectation. Not only, I think they will do that. I think that should be the expectation heading into the season. Another team that I could throw into this mix if you want to, Ohio State from last year. Ohio State last year lost to Michigan in like the only game that mattered for them in the entirety of the season. Beat Notre Dame, beat Penn State. Good wins, really nice wins, but the rest of their schedule was pretty soft because the Big Ten wasn't very good last year. If you end up in a Big Ten or an SEC type of a schedule and you go 10-2, you're going to finish in the top 12. That's why T-Bone hates the format.
What's your team looking at, though?
Well, the reason we're probably going to win 4 games this year, because if you look at this nice list that they have here, Illinois has the 27th toughest schedule. Like, we're probably an 8-win team. It's just a really hard schedule.
Special teams is going to lead Illini to the playoffs.
Team?
Oh, yeah. If it weren't for that hard schedule.
You would sign up for that in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
If I told you right now you could lock in an 8-win season.
If they had an easy Big Ten schedule, we're an 8-win team.
Special teams is going to lead the Illini into the playoffs.
Both the teams from the Pac-12, Washington and Oregon.
If you had a good enough team, you'd have some optimism.
And they play Michigan, and they play Penn State, and they play Kansas.
I'm seeing a lot of complaining and whining.
I do love
just
that.
Tell me what's going to happen.
On this list of the hardest schedules in the country this year, Georgia is at number 2 on the list of the toughest schedules. Clemson is their opener for the season. They travel to Alabama. They travel to Texas this year. They travel to Ole Miss. If they end up in the college football, if they end up undefeated, ending up in the college football playoff, I'd be pretty surprised if they don't. If they end up undefeated again this year, like they've earned it, man.
Yeah, you can't deny that anymore if they do that.
They're on just such a ridiculous run right now. And to be able to go through this gauntlet of a schedule once again and to potentially still have an opportunity again to be in the college football playoff after everything that they lost from last year, dude, whatever. Good luck. Good for you.
I hate you.
It is really nice that Mizzou doesn't have to see them this year. I'll tell you that much.
Boy, next year's schedule for Mizzou, we're going to look at it and go, oh, my God.
It's basically a flip of this one, though.
That's why you have to enjoy this year while you have it.
Next year's the same thing. Because the way that the SEC is doing this, they're going to face like the same teams next year that they did this year, just reversed. And the teams that were on the road are now at home. I hate the way the SEC did this, but it worked out for Mizzou.
What you're telling me is in 2 years, it's going to be rough. They're going to be like at Georgia, at Texas,
that's when Drink heads off to a new destination.
Hey.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Illinois?
Mizzou might get Bielma, though.
You can have him.
I've heard he's great at recruiting. Building that family.
They need a new slogan. It's not working.
You can't spell family without I.
Mizzou's going 11-1 this year.
I got to pick a bone with somebody real quick.
11-1?
Yeah.
My dad bought the college football game. First photo he sends me, him playing Mizzou up 33-0 over Illinois. What the hell?
He's using Mizzou?
Yeah.
Your dad's an Illinois fan, right?
No, he's a Missouri fan. Because he's from St. Louis.
Good.
So the first picture I get, Mizzou up like 33-0.
He gets it.
He's like, I had 2 pick sixes. I said, turn up the freaking difficulty.
Hey, you don't have to play too high on difficulty to beat Illinois.
First thing I'm doing, I get the game. Easy.
Putting it on easy and beating Mizzou.
I'm scoring 100 on Mizzou.
I've got a little update for trade deadline to throw in here before we get to one's got to go on the other side. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. You give us 4 options. We'll tell you which one's got to go.
I can't do any more cowboy noises. I'm losing a lot of blood over here.
Mark Feinsand says, multiple teams have reached out to the Rockies about the availability of Ryan McMahon, but Colorado does not appear intent on moving him. The Rockies do have other players that could be moved, including Cal Quantrill, Austin Gomber, and Elias Diaz.
Oh, I thought you were going to say that the Rockies are adamant about making a push for the playoffs.
Can you imagine if you're a team on the other line and you call up the Rockies and you say, hey, we were wondering, Ryan McMahon, really good defender, really good hitter. We'd be interested in him. Are you guys making him available? And they're like, no, probably not going to move on from him, but we do have Cal Quantrill.
We got a 30-year-old catcher and 2 sinker ballers.
What's your bullpen look like? Because I got a lefty who could be good for you there.
It's just like, I don't know, man.
That organization is a mess.
And I just saw the Mets, they were making all those moves earlier. I think we talked about this off air. Kodai Senga is back for them.
Good.
Oh.
So there's your
Okay,
another pitcher in the rotation.
Changes the look of that
Now their
Severino
rotation
Quintana
looks-
Manaea.
Now
their rotation looks a little better.
They look a little bit better than the Cardinals now.
The Cardinals need to get a front of the rotation starter
Like
so
Gomber
badly.
or Quantrill.
What if you got both? Dude.
Mo called, and the Rockies were like, we're not trading
Again, if
McMahon.
you
Well, we don't
trade-
want McMahon.
You know what's interesting? If they traded for Gomber and just made him a reliever, I would actually be fine with that. If they said Gomber's going to be one of our lefties now.
Like, you think the Cardinals are that creative, though?
I think they'll just use Steven Matz as a lefty in the bullpen. That's a better play in this one.
I actually think Steven Matz is a better version of that.
I
So
agree.
I'd be fine with it.
I do, too.
But
I think they'll
if
call
that
the
was their
Rockies.
move, I'd be fine with it as long as they do not expect him to be a starter.
I think they'll call the Rockies and say, hey, look, we'll take Quantrill and Gomber. You take Arenado.
Wasn't Quantrill the one?
And give us our $50 million back.
Wasn't Quantrill the one that, dealed against the Cardinals? Like, when Colorado came to town, he, shoved for 6 or 7 innings.
that was Gomber.
I don't think it was Gomber. I think it was Quantrill.
No, I think they beat up Gomber pretty good, if I'm not mistaken.
I think it was Quantrill.
I know
was the
they
one that pitched really well.
Beat Gomber last year because that was 2 years ago, wasn't it? When Pujols took him deep.
Quantrill, 5 innings, 3 hits, 4 walks, 1 strikeout, no earned runs.
Oh, so iconic.
They saw that. We're like, oh, hey,
This is like Lance Lynn.
Gersh, write that down. That guy.
Yeah. Cal Q. Go get him.
that guy.
Let's go get Q.
Since then, he has a 4.5 ERA, and opposing hitters have an 8.20 OPS against him.
Sounds like Zach Eflin. It's the same player.
It's a hitter's ballpark. He's
Coming up next, one's got to go here on 101 ESPN.
Terry Hendricks here, the Sports Center update brought to you by Soliga Heating and Cooling. Cardinals back in action tonight as they start a 3-game weekend set with the Washington Nationals. 7:15 will be first pitch. Mackenzie Gore will be on the mound for Washington, and Sonny Gray will get the start for St. Louis. The Sports Center update is brought to you by Soliga Heating and Cooling, an independent American Standard heating and air conditioning dealer.
All right, let's play a game of One's Gotta Go. You give us 4 options. We'll tell you which one's got to go here on BK and Ferrario. Let's start out with this one, Alex. One's Gotta Go's Pro Sports Trade Deadline Edition. MLB, NBA, NHL, or NFL. I'll start. NFL sucks. It's terrible.
Yeah.
The other 3 are at least compelling.
Yeah, I agree. The NBA is probably like tied with the NFL. I think the NHL and Major League Baseball are more entertaining for me.
NBA's deadline is fantastic.
Yeah, Kevin Durant's been moved. James Harden's been moved.
Yeah, NBA's deadline is awesome.
I think NBA is one because they can move money around like crazy.
Cool, congrats. I'm still going to say that's the third or second worst
I
out
hate
of all
to tell
these.
you, but the NHL
Baseball's
one,
the second worst.
You're going to hate when the NHL fixes the LTIR loophole because when they do, the trade deadline's going to suck.
Baseball's deadline has not been good in a while.
Whoa.
I mean, just being honest.
It's true.
The last couple of seasons with everybody aiming for the middle now with the extra wild card.
It's very boring. It like gets you excited, and then nobody wants to trade their pieces at the deadline, and then you see a couple move, and that's it.
There's too many nerds running teams now. And I say that as a nerd myself. They hug their prospects too tightly.
And also in baseball, like the bigger trades seem to happen prior to the deadline, too. So, like, they get done
there
early.
There really weren't any deals in last
you're right.
season stunk. And this deadline stinks. And the reason why is because the owner screwed it all up with the extra wild card. That's just the truth.
Welcome to the hate the playoff format group, man.
Yeah.
I enjoy watching the postseason with the extra. I kind of like the format itself. I actually do. I don't like what it does for teams. It makes teams so much less likely, so much less incentivized to make the deals. All right,
you lie.
One's got to go Olympic swimming.
Olympic swimming.
What? Breaststroke, backstroke, freestyle, or butterfly. Dude, butterfly is brutal.
Butterfly. Yeah.
It's a butterfly, that one sucks.
It's the one that
like
Phelps was unbelievable at.
That's what I actually sound like when I try and do the butterfly stroke. What T-Bone just said, oh.
Yeah. The butterfly's
it's
out.
one, and then you just lay in the pool like this. And like, I'm done.
One's got to go broken bone edition.
Oh, whoa.
A toe, a finger, an arm, or a leg.
Toe, because I don't care. It's gone numb, and it's not affecting me.
I feel like
Get the leg
Dude,
out
your
of
big
here.
toe breaking would be tough. That's like where a bunch of your balance is.
Sure.
But they don't do anything for it. They're just like, here you go, man.
A total broken leg, you're like in a wheelchair or have to have crutches.
Leg and arm, yeah.
Leg and like a finger and arm, fine.
The problem is if we're going off of like, if it's like your like my right arm, I would much rather have my leg than my right arm because I do everything. Like without my right leg, I'll figure it out. But my arm, that sucks.
I'm getting rid of the leg because then like when something in your lower half hurts, it sucks because you got to walk around.
Yeah, but I think you just get a wheelchair.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for One's Gotta Go. One's Gotta Go. Walker, Mason Wynn, Alec Burleson. Only 3 options here, but one's got to go out of those 3.
Because I haven't seen it at the major leagues yet for a full season, I would say Walker.
I think it's Walker. I agree.
Now, if Burleson regresses next year, my opinion could change.
They were talking about this on the fast lane. Would you guys consider Alec Burleson to have star potential?
After watching,
not superstar, star potential.
After watching what he's doing this season, I don't know how you couldn't. I mean, he has been a star this season.
Yeah. I think he's got star potential. Maybe not superstar where he's known across baseball, but in St. Louis, where he becomes the guy that's on the like light poles downtown or
the only thing
images
he's missing,
everywhere.
The only thing he's missing is his defense.
We talked about this a couple of days ago. You guys compared him to, I think somebody compared him to Kyle Tucker. That's a perfect comparison in terms of like star. Kyle Tucker is a star.
Yeah.
T-Bone forgot about him like 2 years ago and was like, Kyle Tucker's not a star, and then looked at his numbers. He was like, Kyle Tucker is amazing. That's Alec Burleson.
Yeah.
A casual baseball fan, probably not super familiar up until he became the DJ Burley Biscuits guy who had the signal, and it became this whole national story, whatever. Until that moment, a lot of baseball fans probably had never heard of Alec Burleson, for just being honest. But once you look at the production, Alec Burleson, I think, has the potential to be a star. That would be the way that I would describe him. So
I can't wait. I can't wait to see him at first base because if he plays first base defensively well, I mean, that adds to the arsenal. Because right now, I think what's keeping you from that is your defense just doesn't match up with it.
You know who else fit into that criteria for me this year? Have you guys looked at what Jarren Duran has been doing?
With Minnesota?
No, with not Johan Duran. Jarren Duran with the Red Sox.
It's been really good.
Dude, he's amazing. He is on pace this year for like 30 triples. It's absurd.
I love a good triple.
Nobody talks about Jarren Duran, but he's a really good baseball player. That's one of the things that I enjoy about the All-Star game is that you actually get to see those guys on full display.
It's the only thing we enjoy about the All-Star game.
Coming up next, Alex, T-Bone, and I, our final segment of the week, final segment until Tuesday, BK and Ferrario Rewind, and we'll give you a chance to win a 4-pack of tickets to next Tuesday night's Budweiser Bash game here on 101 ESPN. Coming up in about 5 minutes, we'll give you a chance to win a 4-pack of tickets to next Tuesday night's Budweiser Bash game for the Cardinals versus the Rangers. Next week's Bud Bash game features a limited edition Steve Klein bobblehead. In about 5 minutes or so, you'll be texting in at 314-399-9646 to win those Bud Bash tickets for the Cardinals versus the Rangers. That is on trade deadline day, so you'll be able to see what the Cardinals are doing before the game, see if maybe there's any hugs that take place on the field prior to that
like
one.
Like Max Scherzer walking across the field, hugging his teammates?
We can only hope, man. I'm still not letting that dream die for Nathan Eovaldi. I think I should, but I'm not doing it just yet.
Let it die, just like Jack Flaherty to St. Louis
The Cardinals
died.
are going to be hugging and leaving.
I
guess Carlson.
The Cardinals
maybe?
are going to sell. They're going to send Ryan Helsley to the Rangers.
Ooh.
Prospects.
Do you guys think that the Cardinals will make a move over the weekend? When you guys do a show on Monday at 11 a.m., I'll be on the morning show Monday at 7 a.m.
You're not a part of this team on
Get
Monday.
it. Big shot.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm on the morning show, guys. Ooh.
Just for a day.
Ooh.
And then
But then I'll be
another,
on the next
and then
one.
another
can't-
one 2 weeks from now.
They've only been able to master the art of dealing with BK for 4 hours.
I can't blame them.
3.
Or, yeah, 3.
No, 4, because, BK's like, well, we should get together early and do show prep.
No, they do all their prep the day before. So it's Sunday, the rundown is
Yeah,
set.
that's smart. Keep you out of the loop for as long as possible.
And then Monday morning, I come in at like 5:30. I'm sitting at my desk, and then I pop in here a little bit before. Anyways, 11 a.m. on Monday, when you guys get into the studio, will the Cardinals have a new addition on the team?
No, I don't think so. I think they're gonna see what the Washington National Series looks like because Mo, he's got to see what this team looks like before he makes a move. I don't think you're gonna see one until late Monday because Tuesday's the deadline. Late Monday, Tuesday afternoon is when you'll get something somewhere in that 24-hour window.
I think they'll make a move. I don't think it'll be for a starter. I think the starting pitcher's the one that's going to take a while. I think that's going to go until deadline day and maybe even Monday. I think they either get the right-handed batter or the reliever over the weekend. And, I don't really have a name for you, but I think
It'd be really
they'll get
nice
one
if
of
they
those
could
done.
announce a right-handed bat at some point in the next, 3 hours.
Why? What's happening tonight?
You got 2 lefties going this weekend.
Oh,
for the
yeah, they could
Nationals.
really use one.
Yeah,
No, that's
Mackenzie
the
Gore.
most-
And to be fair, Mackenzie Gore has some reverse splits, interestingly enough. Lefties are batting .310 against him so far this year.
But Ollie told us that Goldie and Arenado are trending in the right direction against
and then
lefties.
DJ Hertz coming up on Sunday.
Is he a real DJ?
He's got a 5 ERA. He's 23 years old.
DJ Hertz for DJ
He
Burley
does
Biscuits.
not have really very many at-bats against lefties, but lefties have hit him pretty hard. But righties have a 450 slugging percentage, so he's got his issues with righties as well. Right-handed bat would be real nice this weekend. I don't think they make one. I think they make their moves next week.
Be nice if you traded for Lane Thomas today.
Just get him across the
Put him in
field.
center field for
I know
top
we
of
can
the
put
first.
him in the lineup. We don't have to
Yeah.
worry about him flying.
There you go.
that'd be
He's already
perfect.
here. That's totally a Mo move.
I would be excited about Lane Thomas because I've been talking
would
about
too.
him since the first month of
And
the season.
I'm comfortable with him playing center field. I don't like it over Siani, but I'm comfortable with him playing center field.
Call your shot. If the Cardinals make a move this weekend, what is it?
I'll say like T-Bone said, for a bat or a bullpen arm. I'll say a bat.
Call your shot. Who is it?
I just did. Oh, who?
Come on, man. Play the game.
I'll say because it's easy for Mo. You don't have to make a phone call. Lane Thomas.
I think it'll be Mark Canha. That'll be my shot.
Zach Eflin.
Shoot or shoot.
I think you get in on Monday. And
Tampa's
Zach
got a
Eflin.
bidding war on their hands. You think they're going to make a deal now?
Did you hear Atlanta's involved?
Yeah. That's called a bidding war.
Makes
We'll
me
take
really
that
wonder.
up to Monday.
When is Eflin scheduled to start again?
He just started yesterday or 2 days ago.
I think he's got one more start prior to the deadline, if I'm not mistaken.
They probably
Well,
won't
it'd be
have
the
him.
30th. It'd be the
He
day
won't make
before.
it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's Tuesday, so he's not going to make that start.
He's not going to start.
Yeah, I bet you because the next team will probably want him to start that day. He'll probably get traded over the weekend. That's probably why we're seeing so many reports about it right now, is that the trade talks heat up on him, so that way it can get done over the weekend.
He's the
Zach
domino
Eflin.
that must fall first.
Zach Eflin is your guy.
This
He's going to be a St. Louis Cardinal.
suck.
And
If that's
Kerry
the
Davis is going to
domino-
be so mad. Kerry's going to
Kerry
be
is not
so
gonna be
mad
happy.
about Zach Eflin becoming a St. Louis Cardinal.
You'll feel better, Kerry, after he pitches a no-hitter in his first start as a Cardinal.
Hey, man, it'll be great.
that won't
He's a
happen.
perfectly fine number 3 starter, and yes, they have a hole at number 2. It is what it is. There's no
Should be-
number 2 starters available.
Should have been
this year.
upset that they didn't re-sign Jordan Montgomery when they had the chance.
If you guys missed anything from today's show, that guy's a number 7 starter right now. He's been terrible this
He's
year.
injured, man.
If you guys missed anything from
Snell
today's
was
show,
too.
be sure to check it out on the podcast page, 101ESPN.com, and the free 101 ESPN app is where you go to find it. It's all presented by
Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers.
Earlier today, Alex told you about a bone that he thought he broke. Which bone was it? Where did he potentially break that bone?
Careful.
Oh, boy.
Whoa, be careful.
You have to have the correct answer to that and be texter number 101 to win the 4-pack of tickets to next Tuesday night's Budweiser Bash game.
Gross.
So send those texts in now. The winner will get that 4-pack of tickets to next Tuesday night's Budweiser Bash. I'll talk to you guys on Monday at 7 a.m. with the morning show. Alex and T-Bone will be back with you guys on Monday at 11 here on 101 ESPN.
I'm
still up until about
12
midnight.
to 2.
I'm typically asleep by midnight now.
Yeah.